Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 24-28. If you want to kill one to warn the others, you found the wrong target. Qin Feiyang looked at the muscular man and said indifferently. Is that so? The muscular man smiled coldly. His hand was covered in a layer of dragon god power, showing no mercy. Soon. That big, fan-like hand was about to slap Qin Feiyang's head. Shwa! Suddenly. An old woman with white hair appeared beside Qin Feiyang. The burly man was startled. The old woman raised her old hand and grabbed the muscular man's wrist. She said hoarsely, "Do you know what the consequences of angering the young master are?" Then. The old woman used her 5 fingers and the muscular man's wrist was crushed. Blood splattered everywhere. What? There are other experts hiding beside him. She can crush the island master's wrist so easily. This old woman can't be a half-step undying expert, right? The people on the island were dumbfounded. The burly man's face was also filled with shock. Because he had personally experienced the old woman's strength. She was definitely a half-step undying expert. What was the background of this young man? 2 early-stage 9 heavens realm experts and a half-step undying expert all called him young master. He was only an early-stage war god. As the first island master of the dragon god palace, he naturally knew about the experts of the divine land. But there was no such person in his memory. As for the current Qin Feiyang, he was looking at the white-haired old woman standing beside him. His expression was also extremely stunned. He had clearly summoned Fire Lotus. How could it be an old woman? Qin Dage, are you surprised? Are you surprised? A playful laughter sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. If it wasn't Fire Lotus's voice, then whose voice was it? Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He said, "Girl, what the hell are you doing? When Li Changhe and the other entered the castle, I knew that you might need my help. In order not to attract the attention of the dragons, I disguised myself in advance. This way, even if the dragons investigate, they'll only know that I'm your subordinate and won't connect it to my true identity. Naturally, I wouldn't think of your identity either." Fire Lotus thought. I see. That little head of yours is pretty smart. Qin Feiyang smiled. Fire Lotus said unhappily, "No matter what, I am still the palace master of the 9 heaven palace, okay? Fine, fine, fine. You're good." Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus giggled secretly. She looked at Qin Feiyang respectfully and asked, "Young master, how should we deal with this person?" Qin Feiyang glanced at the burly man. "Let me give you a word of advice. Don't be too presumptuous, because this is the Dragon God Palace. If you dare to harm me, then you are going against the dragons. Do you know the consequences of going against us dragons?" The burly man took a few steps back and stared fiercely at Qin Feiyang. His voice was stern. Whether it was humans or beasts, they were all afraid of death. The divine dragons were no exception. However, the burly man was different. He had the confidence. His confidence came from the dragons. The divine land, and even the entire ancient world, were ruled by the dragons. All living things were ants. Who dared to provoke the dragons? Who dared to be presumptuous in front of the dragons? The dragons were the masters of this world. If it was anyone else, even if it was the 9 heavens realm or the undead realm, they would definitely kneel in front of the burly man and beg for mercy. Because the dragons were that strong and domineering. Those who complied would prosper and those who disobeyed would die. But would Qin Feiyang be afraid of the dragons? If he was afraid of the dragons, he wouldn't have entered the divine land, let alone the Dragon God Palace. I don't know the consequences of angering you, but I am very clear about the consequences of angering me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, turned to look at Fire Lotus, and said one word casually. Kill. Yes. Fire Lotus responded in a hoarse voice and turned to look at the burly man. You guys are simply lawless. If you kill me, you guys will die too. The burly man roared, and a trace of panic crept up on his face. Who was this person? After coming to the Dragon God Palace, it was fine if he didn't tuck his tail between his legs, but he actually dared to threaten the dragons? How could there be such an unreasonable person? In any case, this was the dragon's territory. Couldn't they show some respect? Fire Lotus laughed and said, obediently offer your dog head. Her laughter was as eerie and terrifying as a ghost. Moreover, her eyes were also glowing with a dark green light. The burly man couldn't help but be scared out of his wits and turned to flee. The people on the island below were shocked to the extreme. The island master actually ran away. This was simply unprecedented. Since ancient times, whether it was in the Dragon God Palace or outside, it had always been the dragons bullying humans. When had a human run to the dragon's head and behave atrociously? This was creating a new precedent. At this moment, they really wanted to ask, Lord Island Master, where is your dignity as a dragon? But they definitely didn't dare to ask. However, Fire Lotus didn't care at all, and said contemptuously, running away without a fight, where is your dignity as a dragon? The burly man suddenly felt a great sense of humiliation. But he didn't dare to turn back. And he wouldn't refute. Survival was more important, who cared about dignity? It seems that dragons are also afraid of death. Fire Lotus sneered and took a step forward. Shwa! With a few flashes, she appeared in front of the burly man. The burly man stared angrily and immediately braked, then turned and fled to the other side. Fire Lotus took another step forward and stood in front of the burly man again. She sneered, there is no road to heaven and no door to earth, do you feel despair? What do you want? The burly man roared. No one who the young master wants to kill has been able to escape, what do you think? Fire Lotus laughed hoarsely. The burly man said angrily, then do it, why are you chasing me like this? Don't you dragons like to play this kind of cat and mouse game? I'll let you have a taste of it now. Fire Lotus mocked. Bastard! This seat will perish together with you. The burly man roared, and a destructive aura suddenly rushed out from his body. Damn! The island master was actually forced to self-destruct. What are you still standing there for? Run! The people on the island were stunned for a moment, then like birds startled by the twang of a bow, they ran for their lives. Even if you want to self-destruct, you have to see who the opponent is. In front of me, you don't even have the chance to self-destruct. You can understand it as weak and lowly. Fire Lotus laughed contemptuously and took a step forward. Her old hand was like an eagle's claw, grabbing the burly man's head. Her speed was several times faster than before. The burly man did not even have the chance to react before his head exploded instantly. A tragic cry resounded through the clouds. That was the cry of the dragon soul. The dragon soul was also directly crushed by Fire Lotus. Fuck! This is too crazy, killing the island master so brazenly, this is probably the first time in history. They are too bold. So arrogant, aren't they afraid of the dragons taking revenge? Believe me, this matter will definitely alarm the dragons, they will not let this matter rest. The people on the island stopped running and looked at the burly man who fell with shock on their faces. The burly man's body gradually returned to the body of the divine dragon. Fire Lotus waved her hand and swept up the headless body of the divine dragon, then turned and flew in front of Qin Feiyang. Well done. But what are you doing with this corpse? Stewing soup. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus suspiciously. He did not send a voice transmission. When the people on the island below heard this, they almost staggered and fell to the ground. Stewing soup. This was like the biggest joke in the world. In today's world, who would dare to use a divine dragon to stew soup? Most importantly, this person did not hide it at all and directly said it out loud. How much did he look down on the dragons? It seemed that he had greatly underestimated the courage of these two people. How was this looking down on the dragons? It was like treating them as livestock. Killing them, plucking their feathers, stewing them, and eating them. Fire Lotus was also a little stunned and speechless. Am I delicious? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. This last did not seem to be very interested in food. Fire Lotus sent a voice transmission. I want to bring it to the Black Tortoise world and put it in the various forbidden areas and divine treasures. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. This divine dragon was at the peak of the 9 heavens realm. Dragon blood, dragon meat, dragon tendons, dragon scales, dragon bones, and so on were all treasures to the people of the Black Tortoise world. Every one of these could increase their strength by leaps and bounds. It was undoubtedly a great fortune. All of a sudden, a bitter smile appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. What's wrong? Fire Lotus looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang shook his head. As the ruler of the Black Tortoise world, I'm completely a hands-off shopkeeper. Aren't you busy? You just focus on the matters outside, I can handle the matters of the Black Tortoise world. Besides, don't the 3 Black Panther brothers help me now? Fire Lotus laughed secretly. Alright, thank you for your hard work. In the future, I'll have to hunt more divine dragons to benefit the people of the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang said secretly. Don't. Wouldn't it be better to capture them alive? I've looked carefully, there's not a single true divine dragon in our Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus sent a voice transmission. Not even one. Qin Feiyang was surprised. That didn't make sense, the Black Tortoise world was an independent world, how could there not be any divine dragons? Yes. Fire Lotus nodded. Alright. Then let's start the dragon hunt plan. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly. Dragon hunt plan? Fire Lotus laughed involuntarily. It seemed that the dragons wouldn't be able to live peacefully in the future. Qin Feiyang waved his hand lightly, and Fire Lotus and the divine dragon's corpse disappeared, then he looked down at the people on the island. Let's go. Don't be targeted by him. The dragons will come and find trouble with him sooner or later. If you're targeted by him, you'll definitely be dragged into the water. It was just a blink of an eye. The people below all fled into the mountains and disappeared from the cave abode. Am I that scary? Qin Feiyang touched his nose. Compared to the dragons, he was already very kind, okay? Little brother. You're in big trouble now. Suddenly, a sigh could be heard from below. Qin Feiyang looked down and saw an old man in green standing on the peak of a mountain on the left. The old man looked to be in his 70s or 80s, skinny and emaciated, and the aura he exuded wasn't very strong, only half a step away from the divine realm. However, there was a friendly smile on his wrinkled face. The trouble that should come will come sooner or later, running away won't solve the problem. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and took a step forward, disappearing into the mountains below. Running away won't solve the problem, but at least it can save your life. The green-robed old man mumbled before following him into the mountains, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 24-29. What? The master of the first island was killed. Who did it? In the deepest part of the Dragon God Palace. On a huge island, there was a splendid hall of gold and jade. Inside the palace, the divine soul of the Dragon God Palace Master stood at the top of the palace, looking at a black-clothed man with anger. The black-clothed man said, "It's said to be Li Bu Hair." Li Bu Hair. The Dragon God Palace Master was stunned. After thinking for a moment, he frowned and said, I remember that he's only a low-tier war god. He has the ability to kill a peak 9 heavens realm. It's true. Moreover, not only the master of the first island, but all the humans we recruited this time were also killed by him. The black-clothed man said. Preposterous. Preposterous. The dragon god palace master was furious and shouted, "Go and kill him immediately." Lord, aren't you making things difficult for me? Let's not talk about the relationship between Li Bu Hair and that young man. Li Bu Hair himself is not someone I can deal with. Do you know? This Li Bu Hair has 3 subordinates. 2 of them are low-tier 9 heavens realm. The other one is a half-step imperishable realm expert just like you, my lord. The black-clothed man smiled bitterly. What? Half-step undying. The dragon god palace master was deeply shocked again. A low-tier war god actually had a half-step undying expert by his side. Lord. I'm only a peak 9 heavens realm. I'm not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. That's why you'll have to personally handle this matter. The black-clothed man said. I have to do it myself. The dragon god palace master was stunned and said angrily, look at my current state. Am I their match? The black-clothed man smiled bitterly. I really don't understand. Where did these 2 come from? That young man's strength is needless to say. He's so strong that even I'm no match for him. Now this Li Bu Hair also has an expert protecting him. But the crux of the matter is that I don't even have the slightest impression of these 2 people. It's as if they appeared out of thin air. The dragon god hall master returned to his throne, frowning in annoyance. The black-clothed man pondered for a moment and asked, My lord, what did the ancestral dragons and Lord Dragon Sovereign say? The dragon god temple master sighed, this seat has yet to report to them. No. My lord, this matter cannot be concealed. The black-clothed man was taken aback. The dragon god temple master angrily said, Of course I know, but the divine stone of fate, the black-clothed man said, losing the divine stone of fate is indeed a great sin, but you were also forced to do so. This subordinate believes that the ancestral dragons and Lord Dragon Sovereign will understand. I hope so. Go to the first island now and take over the position of island master. Remember, don't be rash. Calm him down first. If there's a chance, find out his identity. The dragon god palace master ordered. All right. The black-clothed man nodded, then turned around and strode away. Qin Feiyang hasn't been found yet, and now 2 mysterious characters have jumped out. What an eventful time. The dragon god temple master sighed and took out the image crystal. Although he was very afraid, these things definitely couldn't be hidden. If he continued to hide it, it would only anger the ancestral dragons and dragon sovereigns. So, taking the initiative to report and admit his mistake in time was the right way. The first island. On the island, mountains were stacked on top of each other. Between the mountains, vegetation was lush. But in such a large floating island, it was difficult to see a beast other than humans. In the northwest, there was a small valley. In the valley, weeds were everywhere. In the middle, there was a small pool. The water was a little turbid, and lush aquatic plants floated. This place was desolate and uninhabited. The surroundings were also quiet. At this moment, a young man in black stood in the air, sizing up the valley. This young man was Qin Feiyang. He didn't want to live too close to others, so he found this place. Anyway, at that time, the deputy temple master of the law enforcement hall also said that he could cultivate anywhere. And here. Although desolate, it was very quiet. Under normal circumstances, no one would disturb him. After choosing a place, Qin Feiyang casually built a cave residence on the cliff on the left side of the valley. He basically went to the castle to cultivate. Therefore, the cave residence was just a decoration to deceive others, and naturally didn't need to be meticulously decorated. He didn't even clean the valley. After setting up a barrier around the cave residence, Qin Feiyang entered the castle. Not long ago, the big black wolf stepped forward to protect him. It was seriously injured by those people, its body was destroyed, and only its head was left. He was very worried. At this moment, the big black wolf was lying in the castle hall, unconscious. However, his shattered body was rapidly recovering. Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan were standing aside. Seeing Qin Feiyang appear, they hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, young master." Qin Feiyang looked at the two and asked, "How is the situation?" "Its injuries have been stabilized. It should wake up after its body recovers." The two of them answered respectfully. Qin Feiyang asked again, "Your spirit isn't injured, is it?" "No." The two of them shook their heads. "That's good." Qin Feiyang heaved a sigh of relief. At the big black wolf's cultivation, as long as its spirit was fine, there shouldn't be any major problems. Scanning the hall, Qin Feiyang asked again, "Where's Fire Lotus?" After coming to the castle, she left with the corpse of the divine dragon. "We don't know where she went either." The two of them were suspicious. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. This girl was really proactive in her work. It was obvious that she must have gone to the various forbidden areas and divine treasures. "Follow me." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, looked at the two of them, and said something. Then, he turned and walked towards the cultivation room. The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly followed. After entering the cultivation room, Qin Feiyang sat in front of the desk, lowered his head, and tapped his fingers lightly on the table. He didn't say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. The two of them stood opposite him and didn't dare to make a sound. After an unknown period of time, Qin Feiyang looked up at the two of them and said, "Did Fire Lotus tell you my identity?" "Identity?" The two of them were stunned. "It seems that she didn't tell you." "Well, I'll tell you myself now. I'm not Li Bu, I'm Qin Feiyang." Qin Feiyang said. "Qin Feiyang." The two of them were stunned again. Qin Feiyang was also stunned and said in surprise, "You don't know?" "No." The two of them shook their heads. Qin Feiyang scratched his head. This was awkward. He thought that he should be very famous, but he didn't expect that even Li Changchun and Wang Daoyuan, who had just reached the Nine Heavens state, didn't know him. It seemed that neither the dragons nor the dragon-slaying palace had told others about him. "You don't know the name Qin Feiyang, but you must know the dragon-slaying palace." Qin Feiyang said. "The dragon-slaying palace." The two of them were stunned. Of course they knew. The dragon-slaying palace was the only group of people who dared to challenge the dragons. The goal of the dragon-slaying palace was to destroy the dragons. Who didn't know about it in the divine land? "I'm the young lord of the dragon-slaying palace, although I haven't admitted it yet. The Qin Emperor you all know is my ancestor." Qin Feiyang said. "What?" The two of them were dumbfounded. They had never thought that the man in front of them was the young lord of the dragon-slaying palace and the descendant of the Qin Emperor, one of the four emperors. His identity was too shocking. No wonder he had a half-step undying realm expert protecting him. Qin Feiyang asked again, "How much do you know about the ancient castle and the Black Tortoise realm?" The two of them shook their heads again. Why didn't this girl say anything? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them helplessly and said, "The ancient castle is a heaven-defying divine artifact. The Black Tortoise realm is an independent world, and I am the master of the Black Tortoise realm." The two of them were shocked again and couldn't extricate themselves. A heaven-defying divine artifact? An independent world? Was this a joke? Li Changhe said in surprise, "In other words, you are a god of creation." "A god of creation?" Qin Feiyang laughed self-deprecatingly and shook his head. With my strength, do I deserve to be a god of creation? But didn't you just say that you are the master of the Black Tortoise realm? Li Changhe and Li Changhe were suspicious. I can dominate everything, but I can't create everything. Only when I can create everything will I be a true god of creation. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. So that's how it is. The two of them nodded in realization. Even so, it was shocking enough. Dominating a world and possessing a heaven-defying divine artifact. No wonder he dared to act so arrogantly. I'm arrogant. That's not right. If those people didn't hurt the big wolf dog, would I have killed them? Qin Feiyang said. Yes, yes, yes. Young master, whatever you say is right. The two of them nodded and smiled flatteringly. What do you mean whatever I say is right? This is the truth. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at the two of them and said, you probably don't know about the ancient castle and the Black Tortoise realm's time rules, right? Time rules? The two of them looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with surprise. Young master, you don't say, but we do find it strange. We have been here for a long time, but when you summoned us to kill those people, we found that only a short while had passed outside. What's going on? The two of them looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Because the time rules here are different from the outside. A day outside is 10 years here. Qin Feiyang said. It can't be. The two of them looked at each other. A day outside is 10 years here. That's too ridiculous. I'm not telling you this to show off, but to give you a warning. Work hard for me, and perhaps I will grant you a supreme opportunity. But if you dare to obey, then you will only face one path, death. Qin Feiyang said. The two of them trembled and hurriedly knelt on the ground, shouting, we will do our best to serve you, young master, and never betray you. They didn't dare to betray him. Their lives were in Qin Feiyang's hands, what else could they do? Very good. Get up. Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them trembled as they stood up, looking very scared. Don't be so nervous. As long as you are loyal to me, I will treat you well. Take the big wolfhound for example. It hasn't been with me for long, but for it, I will kill those people even if I have to expose my identity. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The moment the big black wolf was injured, he really had the impulse to open up the killing zone and kill in all directions. But when he thought of the mission, he endured it. But even so, letting Li Changhe and Fire Lotus take action was also a huge risk. Because the dragons would definitely investigate him and settle the score with him. These were all problems he had to face. Understood. Li Changhe and Fire Lotus nodded. They didn't know Qin Feiyang, so they didn't know what kind of person Qin Feiyang was. But now, they had no choice. They could only pray silently in their hearts that this young master was really such a person. Chapter 24:30. Okay, let's get down to business. Which city did that white-robed old woman come from? Qin Feiyang asked. Old woman in white. Li Changhe and the other man were slightly stunned as they looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. She's the old witch who came looking for trouble on the plains. Qin Feiyang said. So it's her. The two understood. Back then in the plains, that white-robed old woman relied on the dragon race behind her to bully the young master. I know her. She's in Holy Dragon City, which is outside the Dragon God Mountain Range. It's not far from us. Holy Dragon City is also one of the biggest cities in the north. Wang Daoyuan said. Qin Feiyang was surprised. So familiar. Are you also from Holy Dragon City? I was one of the 10 guard commanders of the City Lord Mansion, but because the City Lord was too harsh, I left the City Lord Mansion and joined the Dragon God Mountain Range. Wang Daoyuan said. You're still a guard commander of the City Lord Mansion? Qin Feiyang paused and asked, Then who's the city lord of Holy Dragon City? The city lord is called Li Mingyuan, and he's at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm. Under Li Mingyuan are the first commander and second commander. The first commander is at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm. The second commander is at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm. Below the two great commanders are the 10 great commanders of the imperial bodyguards. Of the 10 commanders, 4 are at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm and 6 are at the peak of the Nine Heavens realm. I'm one of them. Wang Daoyuan said honestly. Qin Feiyang said, so you're still at the bottom? Bottom? Wang Daoyuan paused and smiled bitterly. Sort of. Qin Feiyang asked, where does that old witch usually stay? She's the messenger of the dragons. Although her cultivation isn't as strong as ours, even Li Mingyuan doesn't dare to do anything. However, she rarely meddles in the affairs of the city. She has always been hiding in the back mountain of the city lord's mansion to cultivate. Wang Daoyuan said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then asked, do you know about the city lord's mansion's treasury and medicinal fields? Treasure vault? Herbal field? Wang Daoyuan looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a daze, young master, you wouldn't, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, you see through but don't say it. Wang Daoyuan and Li Changhe looked at each other. Since ancient times, no one had ever dared to target the Holy Dragon City's treasure trove and herb fields. This young lord was indeed not an ordinary person. This subordinate knows the location of the herbal field. Even though I've never been to the herb field before, I've heard of it after working in the city lord manor for so many years. However, this subordinate truly does not know the location of the treasury. The only people who know about this are the dragon's emissary, Li Mingyuan, the first commander, and the second commander. Wang Daoyuan said. It doesn't matter, as long as we know where the herbal field is. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Compared to the treasure vault, he preferred the herbal field. Because the spirit vein and crystal vein were basically under the herbal field. Wang Daoyuan asked cautiously, young master, when do you plan to take action? Tonight. But before that, I have to find someone to take me out of the Dragon God Palace. All right. You guys go out first, I'll think about it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said. Yes. The two bowed and left. Qin Feiyang sat alone at the desk, lowered his head and pondered. A moment later. Qin Feiyang suddenly got up and left the castle. When he walked out of the cave, he immediately sensed a divine sense. Moreover, it was a very strong divine sense. Qin Feiyang frowned, rose into the air, stood above the valley, and scanned the surroundings. Soon. He saw a black-clothed man above a giant peak in the distance. The black-clothed man also looked at Qin Feiyang from afar. Peak Nine Heavens realm, the aura of the divine dragon, Qin Feiyang whispered. At this moment, the black-clothed man turned into a stream of light and flew towards Qin Feiyang. Coming for me? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Swish. Soon. The black-clothed man landed opposite Qin Feiyang and frowned. You are Li Bu here. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked suspiciously, may I ask who you are? The black-clothed man said, you killed the island master of the first island, someone has to take over. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized and said, so you are now the island master of the first island? Yes. I hope that during the period when I am in charge of the first island, we can get along peacefully. The black-clothed man revealed a smile and said. Get along peacefully. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This shouldn't be something that the dragons should say, right? You might be a little surprised. But I have never looked at people and have never discriminated against you humans. The black-clothed man said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. You don't have to be so vigilant. After spending some time together, you will naturally know what kind of person I am. As the black-clothed man finished speaking, he took out a token and threw it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang caught the token and looked down suspiciously. The token was golden in color, as if it was cast in gold. And on the front of the token, there was a divine dragon pattern engraved on it. On the back, there were 3 words, Dragon God Palace. This is the identity token of our Dragon God Palace, and also a symbol of status. You have to take good care of it. The black-clothed man said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. The black-clothed man smiled, then can you introduce yourself to me now? Li Bu, heir. I have no parents, no family, and a dog as my companion. Qin Feiyang said. No parents? Alone? The black-clothed man looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Who was he kidding? If he really had no parents and no family, how could he have a half-step undying expert to protect him? Qin Feiyang said, Is there anything else, Island Master? No. The black-clothed man came back to his senses and waved his hand. Then I will take my leave. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he turned and flew down to the valley below. The black-clothed man suddenly asked, Where are you from? Black Rock City. Qin Feiyang said without looking back. Black Rock City, the black-clothed man whispered, looking at Qin Feiyang's back, a trace of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. There is murderous intent. At the same time, Qin Feiyang's body stiffened slightly. Because of the kill formula, he was quite sensitive to murderous intent. And behind him, there was no one else, only the black-clothed man. This meant that this murderous intent came from the black-clothed man. Get along peacefully. This should just be a delaying tactic. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes, and he entered the cave without looking back. He really didn't put the people of the Dragon God Palace in his eyes. But he had to be wary of the Dragon Sovereign and the various ancestral dragons. This was the only thing he was worried about. This time, the dragons and the various ancestral dragons were very likely to come to the Dragon God Palace in person. However, why did the ancestors let him enter the Divine Dragon Palace? And where was the Princess of the Dragons hiding now? Qin Feiyang stood in the cave with his back against the wall, his hands crossed in front of his chest, and his brows tightly knitted together. To be honest, the threat of the Princess of the Dragons was no less than that of the Dragon Sovereign and the various ancestral dragons. Because this woman not only had the same ability as the Dragon Sovereign, but also had a clone of the Dragon Sovereign hidden in her body. The most important thing was, this woman didn't do anything now, she only had one mission, which was to find him. If she changed her appearance and mixed in with the crowd, it would be impossible to guard against her. However, there was one thing that was certain. This woman wasn't in the Dragon God Palace now. Because those who entered the Dragon God Palace, except for him and the youth, were all dead. If the Princess of the Dragons really mixed in with the crowd and also came to the Dragon God Palace, then when Li Changhe and the other 2 attacked, she would definitely not sit still and wait for death. In other words, currently in the Dragon God Palace, he didn't have to worry about the threat of this woman. I can't be careless, it's better to be careful. Qin Feiyang shook his head and walked out of the cave again. The black-clothed man was already gone. Swish! At that moment, he activated the concealment technique, rose into the sky again, glanced at the island, casually found a direction and flew over. Along the way, he saw many caves and sensed a lot of auras. There was a war god. There was a divine lord. There was also a supreme god. But there was no aura of the 9 heavens realm. About half an hour passed. He stopped above a giant mountain and looked down at the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain, there were 3 middle-aged men drinking and chatting. I really didn't expect that such a fierce person would come to our Dragon God Palace this time. Yeah. He even dared to kill the island lord. This Li Bu is really a scary guy. 2 of them sighed with emotion. Li Bu is scary. No, 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 the real scary person is someone else. Another person took a big gulp of wine, then looked at the other two and shook his head. This person was about 1.75 meters tall, thin, with narrow eyes and a gloomy aura. Who is it? When the two heard this, they immediately looked at the gloomy middle-aged man suspiciously. Do you still remember the youth lying on the head of the snow python? The gloomy middle-aged man said. Of course I remember. I also heard the deputy lord of the law enforcement palace say that he seems to be the new lord of the law enforcement palace. The two said. The gloomy middle-aged man asked, what about the original lord of the law enforcement palace, Long Chong? Yes. Where's Long Chong? The two looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. Long Chong is dead. He was killed by that young man in front of the Lord at the entrance square. It's just that there were too many people there at that time, and the first island was a little far from the entrance square, so we didn't see it clearly. Also, the body of the Dragon God Palace Lord was also shattered by that young man. The gloomy middle-aged man said. It turns out that the Lord's body was destroyed by him. That's amazing. The two were shocked. He's not just amazing, he's simply invincible. Do you know how he became the Lord of the Law Enforcement Palace? At that time, he said to our Lord to let him play with the Lord of the Law Enforcement Palace, and the Lord really gave it to him. The gloomy middle-aged man said. That's too exaggerated. The two looked at each other. It's not exaggerated at all. I asked my friend about it. The gloomy middle-aged man said. Is it your friend in the law enforcement palace? The two asked. They even knew who the gloomy middle-aged man's friend was. It seemed that the two were very close to the gloomy middle-aged man. Yes. When the vice lord of the law enforcement palace returned, he told them about this. That's why my friend knew about it. The gloomy young man nodded. One dared to kill the island lord, and the other dared to beat up the Lord Palace Lord. These two people are really amazing. I wonder if there are other experts hiding in Libu, or a spatial divine item. Perhaps that young man also has a spatial divine item, and that spatial divine item is probably hiding some even more terrifying existences. The two said in disbelief. A spatial divine item isn't something rare. Even I have one, let alone that young man. As for whether there are even more terrifying existences hiding in there, it's really hard to predict. But I have a hunch that the arrival of those two might cause an unprecedented storm in our Dragon God Palace. The gloomy middle-aged man said worriedly. Qin Feiyang listened for a while and was about to leave, but when he heard the gloomy middle-aged man say that there was also a spatial divine item, he was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at the gloomy middle-aged man again and muttered with a smile, "Unlucky child, it's you." Chapter 24:31. The gloomy middle-aged man didn't know that he had been targeted and was still bragging. A moment passed. The other two got up and left. Life is short, we need to enjoy ourselves. Going against the dragons, isn't it courting death? The gloomy middle-aged man shook his head and sat on the top of the mountain, basking in the sun while drinking wine. If you want to live a comfortable life, you shouldn't have come to the Dragon God Palace. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Who? The gloomy middle-aged man was shocked and glanced at the void in front of him. Because the voice came from the void in front of him. Swish! Before his voice faded, a muscular young man appeared in the void. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang? Why are you here? The gloomy middle-aged man suddenly stood up, his eyes full of surprise. I'm looking for you. Qin Feiyang laughed. Looking for me? The gloomy middle-aged man was slightly stunned and frowned. We don't seem to be friends. Not before, but it's hard to say in the future. Qin Feiyang sat opposite the gloomy middle-aged man with a smile. Seeing this, the gloomy middle-aged man quickly got up and prepared to leave, as if he had met the god of plague. At present, in everyone's eyes, Qin Feiyang was indeed the god of plague. Not only did he kill everyone in this assessment, but he also killed the island master. With these two crimes added together, the dragons would definitely not let him go easily. So now, no one was willing to get close to him, for fear of being implicated and implicating themselves. If you want to die, you can go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, grabbed the wine pot on the table and tasted it. It was extremely spicy, like a burning fire. The gloomy middle-aged man's body stiffened and looked at Qin Feiyang in fear. Compared to the immortal drunk, this wine is really worthless. Qin Feiyang shook his head, put down the wine pot in his hand, looked up at the gloomy middle-aged man and smiled, "Sit down." The middle-aged man returned to the stone bench with a gloomy face, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "What do you want to do?" "Very simple. Take me away from the Dragon God Palace." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. That was right. Since he could use the ancient castle to bring Fire Lotus and the others into the Dragon God Palace, he could also use the spatial item to leave the Dragon God Palace. However, it was definitely impossible for him to control the castle. Because the castle was exposed outside, it would be blocked by the barrier at the entrance. Therefore, he had to find someone with a spatial divine object to help him. Speaking of which, he was lucky. He had met someone who possessed a spatial divine item so quickly. Leave the Dragon God Palace? Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the gloomy middle-aged man was stunned. You just came in, why are you leaving again? Could it be that this person regretted entering the Dragon God Temple and wanted to escape? How could this be? After signing the fate contract, even if he escaped from the Dragon God Palace, he would not be able to escape the control of the dragons. Besides, if you want to leave, you can leave on your own. Why do you have to come to him for help? I know what you're thinking. First, I don't regret entering the Dragon God Temple. Second, I don't want to escape either. The reason why I asked for your help is because you have a spatial divine object. Qin Feiyang snickered. If you don't want to escape, then why do you want me to take you out? Don't tell me you don't have legs. The gloomy middle-aged man raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang sent his voice, because right now, I can't go out. Can't go out? What do you mean? The gloomy middle-aged man looked at him in shock. Qin Feiyang muttered, I've already removed the fate contract, so I can't go through the entrance. So that's how it is. The gloomy middle-aged man nodded in realization. But then, he suddenly stood up, stared at Qin Feiyang in shock, and stuttered, "WWW, what did you say? Calm down, calm down." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, indicating for him to sit down. The gloomy middle-aged man turned a deaf ear. How could he remain calm? He actually removed the fate contract. This was an inconceivable thing. Fine. I'll say it again. I've already removed the fate contract. Qin Feiyang helplessly said. That's impossible. The gloomy middle-aged man immediately shook his head. Only the Lord of the Dragon God Palace can remove the fate contract. This person killed the Lord of the Isle and became enemies with the dragons. How could the Lord of the Dragon God Palace help him remove the fate contract? Don't be so surprised, a mere fate contract won't be able to stop me. Qin Feiyang lightly smiled. The gloomy middle-aged man stared straight at Qin Feiyang. From the looks of it, he's not joking. Can he really remove the fate contract? The gloomy middle-aged man slowly sat down, a hint of desire slowly appearing in his eyes. Qin Feiyang saw all of this. He already expected this. No one from the Dragon God Palace could resist the temptation of removing the fate contract. Next, Qin Feiyang didn't say anything else and just silently looked at the gloomy middle-aged man. He believed. This person will take the initiative to speak. As expected. A moment later. The gloomy middle-aged man looked up at Qin Feiyang and sent his voice, "I can help you, but I have a condition." "I agree." Qin Feiyang nodded. The gloomy middle-aged man was stunned. "I haven't even told you my condition and you already agreed? Your condition is nothing more than to help you remove the fate contract." Qin Feiyang lightly smiled. "Smart." The gloomy middle-aged man smiled. "You flatter me." Qin Feiyang smiled. The gloomy middle-aged man asked, "When are you leaving?" "Right away." Qin Feiyang replied. "All right. I'm going back to the cave to pack up, wait for me here." Saying so, the gloomy middle-aged man stood up and flew towards a nearby mountain. Halfway up the mountain, there was a cave. The gloomy middle-aged man landed at the entrance of the cave, turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang, then entered the cave without looking back. "Pack up. Are you in such a hurry to leave?" Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly and instantly disappeared without a trace. Inside the cave. Whether it was the layout or the decoration, it was much more exquisite than Qin Feiyang's cave. There was a separate cultivation room, lounge, and reception room. At this moment. In the reception room. The gloomy middle-aged man stood on the ground, his eyes flickering. Suddenly. A trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes and he took out the image crystal. "Who do you want to send a message to?" But at this moment. Qin Feiyang's voice suddenly sounded. "What?" The gloomy middle-aged man was shocked. The next moment. Qin Feiyang appeared in front of the gloomy middle-aged man and looked at the image crystal in his hand, his eyes full of sarcasm. Don't get me wrong, I'm sending a message to my family to tell them the good news." The gloomy middle-aged man said, but his expression was extremely flustered. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang laughed. "Really? I'm not lying to you." The gloomy middle-aged man vowed. "Don't take me for a fool. You must be thinking of sending a message to your friend from the law enforcement hall and telling him that I can break the fate contract. In that case, you can use this opportunity to be severely injured by the Dragon God Palace and have a meteoric rise." Qin Feiyang smiled. "I didn't." The gloomy middle-aged man shook his head. "Don't be so nervous. I don't care about such a small matter." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The gloomy middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang skeptically. How could there be such a magnanimous person in the world? "Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled and activated an altar. There was still some distance between the entrance and the first island. Activating the altar could save a lot of time. Okay. The gloomy middle-aged man nodded repeatedly and stopped packing. He followed Qin Feiyang and jumped onto the space divine item. Whoosh! Very soon, the two of them arrived above the square at the entrance. There was not a single soul in the huge square. Qin Feiyang asked, "Is there usually no one guarding this place?" Long Chang used to guard it personally. But now that Long Chang has been killed and the body of the Dragon God Palace Lord has been destroyed, they probably won't have the mind to care about this entrance for the time being. Besides, the barrier at the entrance was personally set up by the ancestral dragon. "It is very safe," the gloomy middle-aged man said. "All right. Send me to your space divine item." 3 breaths. After 3 breaths, if there is no movement, I will destroy your space divine item. Don't doubt that I don't have the ability to do so. Qin Feiyang said. Once he entered the gloomy middle-aged man's space divine item, he would not be able to see the outside scene. Who knew what the gloomy middle-aged man would do? What if he secretly took him to the Dragon God Palace Lord? So, he gave a time limit. 3 breaths. Within 3 breaths, even if the gloomy middle-aged man wanted to harm him, it would be too late. I wouldn't dare. The gloomy middle-aged man smiled flatteringly and then waved his hand. Qin Feiyang immediately appeared in a stone room. The entire stone room was only 3 to 4 meters of space. This was considered a very low level. There was nothing inside. On the square. The gloomy middle-aged man's face was uncertain. But in the end, he sighed and decisively walked towards the entrance. Without any obstruction, the gloomy middle-aged man stepped through the stone door, landed on the stone stairs, and immediately took Qin Feiyang out of the space divine item. Qin Feiyang looked at the entrance and said with a faint smile, "Your performance is not bad." The gloomy middle-aged man breathed a sigh of relief and said with a flattering smile, "Then when will you help me remove the fate contract?" "When I come back later, I will need your help, so there is no hurry for the time being." Qin Feiyang laughed. "What? I have to accompany you back?" The gloomy middle-aged man was stunned. "Yes. If it wasn't for you, how could I come back?" Qin Feiyang said. But, the gloomy middle-aged man's face was extremely ugly. "Weren't you ready to betray me just now? It means that you actually don't want to leave the Dragon God Palace, so why are you pretending now?" Qin Feiyang sneered. "Just now, I was blinded by greed. And now, since I have left the Dragon God Palace, I really don't want to come back. Please, can you help me?" The gloomy middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang pleadingly and almost knelt down. "Don't worry. There is room for negotiation, let's talk as we walk." Qin Feiyang chuckled. He then turned around and walked down the stone stairs. Betraying him and asking for his help. Was that possible? He wasn't afraid that the gloomy middle-aged man would continue to play tricks. Not to mention the Fire Lotus, even Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan could easily suppress this person. He also believed. The gloomy middle-aged man was a smart person and didn't dare to have such thoughts. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, the gloomy middle-aged man wanted to say something but stopped. Then, he sighed deeply and followed behind Qin Feiyang gloomily. He was extremely regretful. Why did he have to be so stupid to report it? If he didn't report it and annoyed this person, he might have already helped him remove the fate contract. It was a mistake. Chapter 2432. After a while, Qin Feiyang walked down the stone stairs. Along the way, he encountered a few disciples of the Dragon God Palace returning from outside, and he avoided them one by one. Because now was not the past, he had to be careful and not leave any loopholes. The gloomy middle-aged man was silent all the way. Qin Feiyang didn't pay attention to him. He flew to an empty mountain peak and called Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan out. Li Changhe said, "Young master, I think we should act at night." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "We're not thieves. What's the difference between night and day? Isn't that being a thief?" Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan looked at each other. What action? The gloomy middle-aged man was stunned and looked at the three of them suspiciously. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Wang Daoyuan suddenly frowned, his eyes full of murderous intent. The gloomy middle-aged man shrank his neck and dared not say a word. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Daoyuan and said with a smile, "Let's go directly to the herb field." Wang Daoyuan looked at Li Changhe, who smiled helplessly. What was the use of looking at him? Could he change the young master's decision? Wang Daoyuan also smiled bitterly and opened a teleportation altar. The gloomy middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang cautiously and asked, "Can I not go?" Although he did not know what these people were going to do, he could tell that it was definitely not something good. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly. The gloomy middle-aged man smiled bitterly, knowing that he would not change anything even if he asked. Li Changhe said, "Young master, we can go, but we'd better change our appearances." "Yes. After all, we'll still be in the divine land in the future. If our identities are exposed, I'm afraid we'll be enemies with the whole world." Wang Daoyuan said. "Enemies with the whole world? The gloomy middle-aged man was shocked. What were these people going to do? It was so serious. He vaguely felt that he had been dragged onto a pirate ship. Okay. Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and nodded with a smile. Li Changhe and the other man immediately took out an illusory form pill and threw it into their mouths, turning into two middle-aged men. Qin Feiyang also took an illusory form pill and changed his appearance into a white-haired old man. Hurry up. Li Changhe looked at the gloomy middle-aged man and shouted. The gloomy middle-aged man opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he had no choice but to use the illusory form pill to change his appearance. Let's go. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the four of them stepped onto the altar one after another. Holy Dragon City. It was located northwest of the Dragon God mountain range. It was 5 teleportation altars away from the Dragon God Palace. As one of the largest cities in the northern part of the Divine Land, Holy Dragon City was naturally prosperous. In the center of the city, there was a mansion. This mansion occupied 1/10 of Holy Dragon City. There were many halls and pavilions. There was even a vast mountain range in the mansion. This was the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion in the Holy Dragon City was naturally far superior to the City Lord's mansion in the Black Rock City. The guards here were at least at the immortal level. There were also countless servants and maids. In that vast mountain range, there was a medicinal field that covered an area of tens of miles. The herbs were glowing and swaying in the wind. For example, the creation tree, the divine infant tree, the nirvana divine tree, anyway, it had everything. Moreover, the herbs here were all more than 10,000 years old. For example, the nirvana divine tree was as thick as a bucket and there were many divine fruits on it. Whoosh! Suddenly, 4 figures landed in the sky above the herb field. They were like ghosts and had no aura at all. They were Qin Feiyang and the other 3. So many. Looking at the herb field below, even Qin Feiyang could not help but feel excited. The herbs here were enough for him to use for a lifetime. Could this be? The gloomy middle-aged man looked bewildered. That's right. This is the City Lord's mansion of the Holy Dragon City. Our goal is this herbal field. Li Changhe looked at the gloomy middle-aged man and said. What? The gloomy middle-aged man's eyes trembled. They actually came to rob the herb field of the City Lord's mansion of the Holy Dragon City? Lunatics. What a bunch of lunatics. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and said, Fire Lotus, are you done? Get ready and come out to help. Okay. Fire Lotus's voice immediately sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang scanned the sky above the herb field. There was not even the slightest fragrance of herbs in the void. It seemed that there was also a barrier hidden here. Thinking of this, he raised his arm and pointed in the air. A divine power suddenly rolled out and blasted into the herb field below. Isn't this alerting the enemy? The gloomy middle-aged man was shocked. Shut up. Without the young lord's order, if you dare to say another word, I will tear your mouth apart. Li Changhe shouted coldly. The gloomy middle-aged man trembled and immediately stood aside obediently, but his heart was extremely panicked. Although the city lord of the Divine Land was a human on the surface, it was actually controlled by the dragons behind the scenes. The Holy Dragon City was no exception. In other words, the actions of these 3 people were undoubtedly openly provoking the dragons. These 3 people were bold, had backing, and were not afraid of death. But he was different. He was just an insignificant person. Wasn't it suicide to go against the dragons? The gloomy middle-aged man wanted to run away immediately. But he didn't have the guts. With a boom, Qin Feiyang's divine power blasted into the void, and a barrier suddenly appeared, covering the entire herb field. Sure enough. Qin Feiyang whispered. Wang Daoyuan said, Young lord, this barrier has the city lord's aura, it must be the barrier set up by the city lord. Li Changhe frowned and said, this city lord is at the peak of the ninth heaven realm, we don't have the ability to break it, only, cough, cough. Qin Feiyang coughed and interrupted Li Changhe. Li Changhe was stunned at first, then came to a realization. He glanced at the gloomy middle-aged man and said, young lord, we have to let Miss Fire Lotus do it. I've already informed her. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Who dares to trespass into the herb field? But at this moment, accompanied by an angry shout, a white figure broke through the air like lightning. Dragon's emissary. Wang Daoyuan and Li Changhe looked over, and their pupils suddenly shrank. It's over. The dragon's emissary is here. Now I can't clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River. The gloomy middle-aged man cried in his heart. Once the dragon's emissary saw him, he would definitely think that he was an accomplice of these people. At that time, even if he had 100 mouths, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. Qin Feiyang also turned to look at the white figure, and a cold smile appeared in his eyes. That's right. The person who came was the white-robed old woman. In fact, he didn't want to rob the Holy Dragon City's city lord's mansion. Because just the treasures in the Dragon God Palace were enough for him to use for several lifetimes. But this white-robed old woman was not tactful, and used her identity as a dragon to make things difficult for him on the plains. She even wanted him to kneel. What a joke. In his life, other than his parents, elders, ancestors, and people he respected, who else had he kneeled to? Was a mere dragon's emissary qualified to do so? He had always been the kind of person who would return respect tenfold. But if you were unreasonable and came looking for trouble, he wouldn't be polite either. Who are you? What are you doing in the herb field? The white-robed old woman landed in front of Qin Feiyang and the other three, and shouted with a cold expression. Are you stupid? A few strangers sneaking into the herb field, they must be up to no good. Qin Feiyang sneered. Thieves are still so arrogant. The white-robed old woman was stunned. Thieves? Do you think we're here to be thieves? As thieves, how dare we stand face to face with you, the dragon's emissary? We're here to rob you. Rob in broad daylight, understand? Qin Feiyang sneered. The white-robed old woman was stunned, and she didn't recover for a long time. What kind of world was this? Even thieves were so arrogant. Boom! All of a sudden, a monstrous aura surged out. The white-robed old woman said sternly, are you borrowing courage from the heavens? How dare you touch the things of the dragons? You don't need to borrow courage from the heavens. As for the dragons, to be honest, I really don't take them seriously, especially a small character like you. Qin Feiyang laughed. How dare you? The white-robed old woman was furious, and her monstrous aura suddenly turned into a huge wave, rolling toward Qin Feiyang and the other three. Seeing this, the gloomy middle-aged man immediately hid behind Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang patted Li Changhe and the other two, and said lightly, keep them alive. Yes. The two of them responded respectfully. Boom. Almost at the same time, the two released their aura like a torrent of beasts, crushing the white-robed old woman's aura. What? The white-robed old woman's face was shocked. As soon as Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan released their aura, she knew their cultivation. Early stage 9th heaven realm. There were actually two early stage 9th heaven realm. Evil creature, I advise you to surrender obediently. Wang Daoyuan shouted. The white-robed old woman was only a half-step 9th heaven realm, because he obeyed her orders because of her identity. But now, after following Qin Feiyang, he was no longer afraid. Don't think that just because your cultivation is stronger than mine, you can do whatever you want. Let me tell you. It's not too late to turn back, otherwise even if you escape to the ends of the earth, the dragons will not let you go. The white-robed old woman shouted with an extremely arrogant expression. In the entire divine land, and even the entire ancient world, who dared to be presumptuous in front of the dragons? Even a tiger would have to obediently lie down. Dragons? I was indeed very afraid in the past. But now, in my eyes, you are just a lowly worm. Wang Daoyuan smiled contemptuously. Finished speaking. He took a step forward and slapped the white-robed old woman with his palm. The white-robed old woman was shocked and angry. He actually dared to say that she was lowly. Saying that she was a worm. But Wang Daoyuan and Li Changhe's cultivation made her feel afraid. Stall for time. Right. As long as she could stall for time until the city lord came, killing these people would be as easy as slaughtering dogs. Swish. Without hesitation. She took a step back. Humph. Wang Daoyuan also saw through her intentions. He snorted from his nose, and with a mysterious step, his speed suddenly soared. In an instant. He caught up to the white-robed old woman and slapped his palm on her shoulder. Puff. The white-robed old woman spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. At the same time, Li Changhe also rushed over and stepped on the white-robed old woman's head. Crack. The skull shattered on the spot, and blood flowed out. Following closely. Accompanied by a painful scream, the white-robed old woman smashed into the ground below like a meteorite. In just one round, the white-robed old woman was seriously injured. Chapter 24:33. Wang Daoyuan looked at the white-robed old woman lying on the ground in a sorry state and smiled. Brotherly, do you feel proud and elated? It's more than just elation. After living for so many years, this is the first time I've beaten up these damned animals. Li Changhe laughed. Yes. In the past, in front of dragons, even if they were facing a dragon that was not even a pseudo-god, they had to bow and bend their knees. Over time, this kind of bowing and bending their knees became a matter of course. Beat up dragons? That was even more unthinkable. Therefore, at this moment, the two of them were particularly excited. The feeling of beating up dragons was really too good. Continue. Wang Daoyuan laughed loudly. After so many years of humiliation, there was finally an outlet. Whoosh! The two of them swooped down, full of heroism. You're courting death. The white-robed old woman got up and stared at the two of them coldly. Roar! With a loud dragon roar, the white-robed old woman revealed her true body. It was a white dragon. Its body was more than 10,000 feet long, like a majestic mountain ridge, and the dragon's aura shocked all directions. What's going on? Dragon's aura? Could it be that the messenger of the dragons in the city lord's mansion has revealed her true body? Who are the other two auras? What are they doing? Could it be that someone killed their way into the city lord's mansion and fought with the messenger of the dragons? Although Holy Dragon City was very big, the aura of Li Changhe and the white-robed old woman was also very terrifying. In an instant, it alarmed everyone in the city. Everyone rose into the air and looked at the city lord's mansion from afar, their faces full of surprise. At the same time, 3 figures flew out from a large hall. These were 3 middle-aged men, and their auras were unfathomable. The 3 of them looked in the direction of the herb field, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Let's go. The leader waved his hand, and the 3 of them immediately rushed toward the herb field. So what if you revert to your original body? I'll still beat you up. Li Changhe and the white-robed old man laughed, and their hearts were unprecedentedly carefree. Without any pause, divine power surged out and attacked the white dragon. You'll regret it. I swear. The white dragon roared, raised its huge tail, and swung it at the 2 of them. The 2 of them immediately raised their fists and punched out. Clang! When the two people's fists collided with the giant tail, the collision actually caused a glaring fire. Two dragon scales on the giant tail shattered on the spot. The white dragon howled in pain, but it did not retreat. It raised its huge tail again and smashed it towards Li Changhe and the other man. I'm going to shatter your dragon scales one by one, and let you have a taste of what it's like to be dead. Wang Daoyuan and the other man laughed sinisterly as they clashed with the white dragon. Clang! Bang! Bang! A series of explosions took place. The terrifying shockwaves from the battle surged in all directions like a tide. The mountains continued to collapse. The earth was also riddled with ditches. Which thief dares to enter my city lord's mansion and cause trouble? Suddenly, accompanied by a loud shout, waves of divine power rushed into the sky. Following closely, a huge barrier appeared and fell with a loud bang. Immediately, the entire back mountain was sealed off by the barrier. The battle fluctuations of Li Changhe and the other man and the white dragon were also blocked by the barrier, and did not affect the palace outside. This voice, the gloomy middle-aged man hid behind Qin Feiyang, looked at the barrier in the sky, and exclaimed, "It's the city lord of the Holy Dragon City." So what? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Li Changhe and the other man below did not pay attention to it and crazily beat the white dragon. Hum! Roar! Ah! Screams were incessant. Qin Feiyang looked down at the white dragon and secretly asked, "Fire Lotus, are you ready?" N. Fire Lotus responded. Qin Feiyang smiled and also retracted his gaze. He looked up at the sky in front of him and saw three figures rushing over like lightning. The leader was a middle-aged man in purple, about 1.78 meters tall, wearing a purple crown on his head, extremely majestic. Behind him were two men in golden armor. One of them was slightly thin, taller than the middle-aged man in purple by a head. His dark eyes emitted a sharp light, and he seemed to be quite capable. The other man was shorter, but very strong. His skin was bronze, and his body contained a terrifying power. Needless to say, the aura of the three was ridiculously strong. It's him. It's him. The city lord of the Holy Dragon City. The gloomy middle-aged man stared at the middle-aged man in purple and exclaimed. He's the city lord. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "What about the two men in golden armor behind him?" "The tall one is the great commander. That short one is the second commander," the gloomy middle-aged man said. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "In that case, except for the guards, all the experts of the city lord mansion are here." The gloomy middle-aged man nodded and swallowed his saliva. In the face of so many experts, he could still be so calm. He really admired this person's courage. The city lord and the other two rushed over. When they saw the white dragon that was covered in wounds, their faces suddenly changed. "Don't be presumptuous. Do you know who she is? She's the messenger of the dragons." The city lord immediately shouted. "Why are you still talking nonsense? Kill them quickly." The white dragon roared. "Yes." The three of them responded respectfully. Boom! Their aura was released instantly. The city lord pointed at Qin Feiyang and the gloomy middle-aged man and shouted, "You two go catch them. I'll take care of the two below." "Yes." The great commander and the second commander nodded and immediately charged toward Qin Feiyang and the other man. The city lord also swooped down and charged toward Li Changhe and the other man. The gloomy middle-aged man looked at the great commander and the second commander and shouted in horror, "Li Bu, hair, I don't want to die." "Li Bu, hair." The white dragon was slightly stunned and immediately shouted, "So it's you, you little bastard." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and stared at the gloomy middle-aged man. The gloomy middle-aged man also realized that he had spilled the beans and hurriedly lowered his head in panic. Qin Feiyang looked at the white dragon again and said coldly, "Your mouth is really asking for a beating. Kill him quickly. No, capture him alive. I want to torture him and make him beg for mercy on the ground like a dog." The white dragon roared hysterically. The great commander and the second commander looked at each other and a cruel look appeared in their eyes. "Kill me? It seems that you still don't know what happened in the Dragon God Palace." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Swish. Suddenly, Fire Lotus appeared beside Qin Feiyang. Ah! But looking at the Fire Lotus at this moment, Qin Feiyang was stunned again. Fire Lotus had actually disguised herself as a middle-aged woman. And her appearance was quite ugly. Fire Lotus smiled and slapped the great commander and the second commander. The two of them immediately wailed and flew out like a kite with a broken string. What? The white dragon was shocked. The city lord was also dumbfounded. She sent the great commander and the second commander flying with a slap. How strong did she need to be? Bang! The great commander and the second commander smashed into the ground and a huge pit immediately appeared. The two of them lay in the huge pit, bleeding all over and on the verge of death. They had already lost the ability to fight. How is this possible? The city lord looked at this scene with disbelief on his face. Needless to say, the white dragon. His pair of dragon eyes almost popped out. How could there be such a strong person beside him? It's your honor that the young master took a fancy to your herb field. How dare you stop him? Fire Lotus looked at the white dragon and the city lord with contempt. The city lord looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus in shock and muttered, "Who are you? It doesn't matter who we are. The important thing is, stand there obediently and don't move." Fire Lotus looked down at the herb field in disdain and was stunned. There were actually so many herbs. The city lord didn't dare to move. Because the aura emitted by Fire Lotus made him feel desperate. Not to mention the great commander and the second commander. At this moment, there was only fear in their hearts. The white dragon was also completely panicked. He didn't expect that there was such a terrifying expert hiding beside this person. However, in contrast, the white dragon was even more miserable. Although they were all prisoners, at least the city lord and the other two weren't beaten. And the white dragon. Even if he had given up resisting now, Li Changhe and the other two didn't stop and kept on beating him. The dragon scales on his body were all shattered. His flesh was badly mangled. His screams were incomparably shrill. "Awesome! You damn beast, you didn't expect that you would have such a day." Wang Daoyuan laughed wildly. During those years of working in the city lord mansion, he had been humiliated by the white dragon. Today, he would get it all back. Crack! It was also at this moment. Fire Lotus pointed her finger and the barrier above the herb field immediately shattered. That's right. She's definitely. Half-step invincible. The city lord murmured. The panic on his face was even stronger. Half-step invincible. An existence at this level could kill a great perfection ninth heaven realm expert with a wave of her hand. Although there was only a step between a great perfection ninth heaven realm and a half-step invincible, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. It was no exaggeration to say. Thousands of great perfection ninth heaven realm experts couldn't pose the slightest threat to a half-step invincible. A half-step invincible was an insurmountable chasm, higher than the threshold of any major realm. Fire Lotus ignored the city lord and the others and scanned the herb field, her eyes shining. As the palace lord of the ninth heaven palace, she could be considered experienced and knowledgeable. But the scene in front of her really couldn't calm down. As soon as the barrier shattered, the rich medicinal fragrance, majestic essence chi, and surging energy roared out like angry waves. The essence chi came from the crystal vein. The energy came from the spirit vein. In an instant, The entire back mountain was enveloped in an ocean of essence, chi and energy. It was hard to imagine how many spirit veins and crystal veins were there under this herb field. And the levels of these spirit veins and crystal veins were definitely higher than those in the Black Rock City. If they were all transferred to the Black Tortoise world, the Black Tortoise world would definitely undergo a great change. Chapter 24-34. Suddenly, Fire Lotus made her move. Divine power surged out and pounced on the medicine field below. You're robbing the medicine field right under our noses? The city lord smiled bitterly. How could a thief be so blatant? But the next moment, a trace of bewilderment crept onto his face. Because Fire Lotus's divine power did not rush towards the medicinal herbs, but poured into the ground below the medicine field. What was she going to do? Could it be, suddenly? The city lord's gaze trembled, and a burst of anger rose in his eyes. Looking at Fire Lotus and Qin Feiyang, he roared, "Don't go too far." But the two turned a deaf ear. "Rise!" Fire Lotus shouted in a low voice. The ground at the back of the mountain suddenly trembled violently. Crack! Boom! Following closely, the entire medicine field rose up from the ground. The spirit veins and crystal veins below the medicine field also slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. I really want to take away the crystal veins and spirit veins, the city lord murmured. So many. Below. Li Changhe and the other two stopped and looked at the crystal veins and spirit veins below the medicine field, their faces full of shock. Those crystal veins and spirit veins were like divine dragons, emitting a dazzling light. Preliminary calculations. There were at least 1,000 spirit veins. There were even more crystal veins, estimated to be more than 2,000. And the lowest level was a first-level divine level spirit vein and crystal vein. For anyone, this was a peerless treasure. We've made a fortune. We've made a fortune. Fire Lotus muttered. With so many divine level spirit veins and crystal veins, if placed in the 4 major regions, they would definitely be able to slowly build a superforce like the 9th Heaven Palace. And for Qin Feiyang, he would not have to worry about soul stones in this lifetime. Qin Dage, hurry up. Fire Lotus turned to look at Qin Feiyang and smiled. In a moment of excitement, she let it slip. Qin Feiyang did not care, and took the crystal veins, spirit veins, and medicine field into the Black Tortoise realm. It's gone. All these years of savings are gone in an instant. The city lord fell to the ground powerlessly. How could he be so unlucky to meet such fearless people? Wait. Qin Dage. Isn't this person surnamed Li? Suddenly, the city lord looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. At this time, Qin Feiyang also looked down at the city lord and asked with a smile, "Where is the treasury? You still want to loot the treasury?" The city lord was stunned. "If I were you, I would tell the truth and beg the young master to let me live." Li Changhe turned to look at the city lord and sneered. "It's not wise to go against the young master." Wang Daoyuan added. All of you are helping the tyrant." The city lord glared at the two of them. What a joke. The dragons are arrogant, despotic, and inhumane. Who is helping them? Li Changhe shouted. The city lord said in a deep voice, "The dragons are not something you have the right to talk about." Stubborn. Li Changhe snorted coldly, raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang, and said, "Young master, kill him. Anyway, the commander and second commander also know the location of the treasury." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, turned to look at Fire Lotus, and nodded. Fire Lotus immediately stepped in front of the city lord. "Don't, I'll talk." The city lord's face suddenly changed as he hurriedly roared. "It's too late." Fire Lotus pointed a finger, and an invisible force entered the city lord's forehead like a tide. Ah, with a blood-curdling scream, the city lord's head shattered on the spot. His soul was also annihilated. Dead. The commander and second commander stood together. Seeing this scene, they couldn't help but feel their souls leave their bodies. The white dragon was lying on the ground on the verge of death, being tortured by Li Changhe and the other two. Looking at the slowly falling city lord, his heart was also filled with fear. As soon as the city lord died, the barrier that enveloped the entire back mountain also dissipated. The barrier has disappeared, let's go and take a look. After the barrier dissipated, a burst of noise came from afar. Obviously, these were the city lord's mansion's guards, or servants, who were previously blocked outside the barrier. But at the same time, Fire Lotus waved her hand, and a wave of divine power appeared, and barrier after barrier appeared again. Why did another barrier appear? What exactly happened in the back mountain? Everyone was bewildered. Fire Lotus also looked at the commander, second commander, and White Dragon, and said with a faint smile, "I'll let whoever tells me." Me, White Dragon hurriedly shouted. Li Changhe and the other two revealed a trace of disdain in their eyes. Wasn't he arrogant and domineering? Wasn't he arrogant? Was he also so afraid of death? Fire Lotus looked at White Dragon and smiled, "Then tell me quickly." White Dragon panicked, "The treasury is where I live, I'll take you there." "Then the two of you are worthless." Fire Lotus looked at the commander and second commander. "No, please, I beg you, don't kill me, I know, I can take you there." The second commander's expression changed as he hurriedly shouted. But the commander didn't say anything, and looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. White Dragon already said, "Do you still need to lead the way? Go to hell." Fire Lotus shook her head and immediately attacked. "Wait." But at this moment, the commander raised his hand and shouted. Fire Lotus looked at him in confusion. The commander glanced at Fire Lotus, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "May I ask, your surname is Qin?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. The commander said, "I heard her call you Qin Dage, then this Li Bu Hair is not your real name." "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. The commander asked, "Then what's your full name?" "Li Bu Hair is not your real name. Your surname is Qin." White Dragon, the second commander, and the gloomy middle-aged man all looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the few of them. Then, he looked at the White Dragon and chuckled, "My real name is Qin Feiyang." "What? Qin Feiyang?" The White Dragon's huge body suddenly trembled. It was Qin Feiyang. The commander was also slightly stunned, then there seemed to be a hint of excitement in his eyes. "What's going on?" But the gloomy middle-aged man and the second commander were surprised. Who was Qin Feiyang? Why did White Dragon have such a big reaction? "You're surprised, aren't you? That low-level war god that you look down on is actually the nemesis of dragons." Qin Feiyang looked at White Dragon with a mocking expression. White Dragon's eyes trembled. Others didn't know, but it was very clear about the means of this person in front of it. That was an existence that could even severely injure the ancestral dragons. There was a saying among the dragons, "Don't mess with Qin Feiyang if you don't have a heaven-defying artifact." I didn't want to cause trouble. But what about you? Why did you have to come here looking for trouble? Tell me, aren't you forcing me to make a move? Now, do you still need me to kneel for you? Qin Feiyang said. No, can I kneel for you? I only ask you to be merciful and give me a way out. White Dragon lay on the ground and cried. There were so many people on the plain. Why did he have to provoke this fiend? He was too unlucky. Qin Feiyang. Who the hell is this person? Even the dragons have to kneel. The gloomy middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang's back with a face of disbelief. A low-level war god not only had the protection of a half-step undying expert, but even the dragons were so afraid of him. It was really unbelievable. Are you really Qin Feiyang? At this time, the commander spoke and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang was startled and looked at the commander. There was something wrong with this person's behavior. It seemed that he was particularly interested in his identity. The commander said again, "If you are really Qin Feiyang, please take out a credible proof." "How dare you? You dare to use such a tone to talk to the young master?" Li Changhe and the other two were furious and immediately rushed towards the commander. "Wait." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and his eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Fire Lotus and said, "Take out the axe and show it to him." Fire Lotus nodded and a rusty axe immediately appeared. "It's really you." When the commander saw the axe, his expression immediately became excited. "Commander, what's wrong with you?" "On the side." The second commander looked at him suspiciously. The commander glanced at the second commander and suddenly attacked, slapping the second commander's head. With a crack, the second commander died on the spot. Ah! Everyone looked at the commander in shock. Is this person crazy? He even killed his companion. Only Qin Feiyang looked at the commander thoughtfully. "What are you doing?" Bai Long was stunned and immediately looked at the commander and shouted. But the commander turned a deaf ear to him. With a plop. He actually knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "Subordinate Jiang Dafei greets the young master." Everyone was stunned again. "Young master? He's from the Dragon Slayer Palace." Fire Lotus was slightly startled. She looked at the commander and then looked up at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang didn't say anything and just looked at the commander. In fact, he had already vaguely guessed the identity of this person before, but he didn't dare to completely believe it. "This is your subordinate's proof." The commander took out a token from his body and handed it to Qin Feiyang respectfully. Qin Feiyang took it in his hand and looked at it carefully. The token was pure white and there was a divine dragon pattern on it. There was a sharp sword on the divine dragon's body. On the other side was Jiang Dafei's name. This token was exactly the same as Fan Yunzhang's. It was the identity token of the Dragon Slayer Palace. The commander said respectfully, "Young master, if you still don't believe me, you can use the slave seal to control me." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he said indifferently, "I want to use the puppet technique to control you." The commander's expression stiffened and he shook his head. "The puppet technique can read my memory by force. I'm afraid that won't work because there are some things that I can't let you know." Exactly the same as Fan Yunzhang's reaction. Qin Feiyang was stunned. However, he even knew the slave seal and the puppet technique's ability. This person's identity shouldn't be fake. "Here you go." Qin Feiyang threw the token to the commander. "Thank you, young master." The commander grabbed the token and bowed. "Damn it. He's actually from the Dragon Slayer Palace." Bai Long also saw the token and a trace of fierceness flashed in the depths of his eyes. "But the rules can't be broken." Qin Feiyang said again and evolved the slave seal. "What rules?" The commander looked at the slave seal, his face full of suspicion. Chapter 2435. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Didn't Fan Yunzhang tell you?" "Fan Yunzhang?" The commander was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Who is Fan Yunzhang?" Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. They were both from the Dragon Slayer Palace, but they didn't know Fan Yunzhang. Could it be that there was something wrong with this person's identity? "Qin Dage, read his memory," Fire Lotus said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang nodded. The slave seal dissipated, and the puppet technique appeared. Jiang Dafei's expression changed drastically when he saw the puppet technique. He said in shock, "Young lord, why are you doing this? I'm suspecting your identity now. Qin Feiyang said. Why? Jiang Dafei's expression froze as he exclaimed. Qin Feiyang said, don't resist, or you'll die. No. If you want to use the puppet technique to forcibly read my memory, then I'll die right now. After saying that, Jiang Dafei really raised his arm and slapped the top of his head. This time, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were stunned. Looking at Jiang Dafei's determined expression, could it be that they had really misunderstood? Wait a moment. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Jiang Dafei's arm paused and said, Young lord, I'm really from the Dragon Slayer Palace. Heaven and earth can be my witness. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, then why don't you know Fan Yunzhang? I really don't know Fan Yunzhang. Can you tell me about him first? Jiang Dafei said. He's also from the Dragon Slayer Palace, and he's currently the city lord of Black Rock City. Qin Feiyang said. What? The city lord of Black Rock City is actually a spy of the Dragon Slayer Palace? Bai Long was shocked. I see. Jiang Dafei nodded and then said with a bitter smile, Young lord, it seems that Fan Yunzhang didn't tell you the details of the Dragon Slayer Palace. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. Our dragon-slaying palace is very careful. For example, people like Fan Yunzhang and I who have been lurking around the dragons are all classified secrets of the dragon-slaying palace. In other words, we don't even know of each other's existence. The only one who knows is our superior, the Divine General. Jiang Dafei said. You mean you don't know about Fan Yunzhang's existence, and Fan Yunzhang doesn't know about you? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. Actually, there are people from our Dragon Slayer Palace in every city's City Lord mansion. But other than the Divine General, we don't know each other. Even if we stand face to face, we don't know that the other party is our companion. This is to prevent anyone from being exposed and not implicate others. Jiang Dafei explained. I see. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. After pondering for a while, he said, wait a moment. I'll find Fan Yunzhang to confirm it. Then, he took out the image crystal. After a while, Fan Yunzhang's shadow appeared. When Qin Feiyang asked Fan Yunzhang, there was indeed such a thing. Moreover, Fan Yunzhang didn't know Jiang Dafei either. Fire Lotus transmitted her voice, Qin Dage, you still can't be careless. N. Qin Feiyang secretly replied and looked at Jiang Dafei, I'll believe you for now. As for my rules, you must use the slavery seal to control me. Okay. Jiang Dafei nodded without hesitation. Qin Feiyang once again formed the slavery seal and entered Jiang Dafei's head. Very soon, the slavery seal was completed. Although I believe you for the time being, you have to find evidence that can convince me within 3 days. Otherwise, I will mercilessly erase your soul. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Jiang Dafei nodded respectfully. However, he felt a little helpless in his heart. He had long heard that this young lord was suspicious and cautious. In the end, it was true. However, this was also a good thing. Because only by being cautious enough could one survive under the eyes of the dragons. And now, the gloomy middle-aged man finally understood. The real name of the person in front of him was Qin Feiyang and he had a high status in the dragon-slaying palace. Alright. It just so happens that I'm too lazy to run, so I'll have to trouble you to take a trip and move all the treasures here. Qin Feiyang looked at Jiang Dafei and said. You can't say that it's troublesome, this is what I should do. Jiang Dafei hurriedly said, then turned around and flew in the direction he came from without looking back. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he said in a low voice, Girl, follow him and take a look. Fire Lotus smiled and turned into a stream of light, following behind without anyone noticing. Li Changhe glanced at Fire Lotus and retracted his gaze. He pointed at the white dragon and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, "Young master, how should we deal with this evil beast? Didn't young master say that if we want to carry out the dragon hunting plan, of course we have to keep it alive?" Wang Daoyuan smiled. "What? The dragon hunting plan?" The white dragon's eyes trembled. It sounded like it was disadvantageous to the dragons. Qin Feiyang chuckled and looked at Wang Daoyuan, saying, "Old Wang, do you think it's worthy of staying in the Black Tortoise realm?" Wang Daoyuan was stunned and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He smiled and said, "I understand. What do you want? Let me tell you, don't be too arrogant. Qin Feiyang, even your ancestor wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous. You'd better know what's good for you." The white dragon immediately roared in panic when it heard that. "What right do you have to talk about my ancestor? I'm afraid your legs will go weak when you see my ancestor." Qin Feiyang smiled disdainfully. The white dragon looked around as it retreated, looking extremely panicked. It was looking for a way out. But the entire back mountain was sealed by Fire Lotus's divine power and there was no way to escape. What should it do? Threats were useless. It couldn't beat it. Was it really going to die here? It didn't want to. "Qin Feiyang, I beg you, can you be magnanimous and let me go? I'll be your slave. I'll apologize to you, I was blind to cause trouble in the plains." The white dragon who was gradually losing hope lay on the ground again, begging and shivering. If there was a medicine for regret in this world, it would definitely buy it at all costs. Of all the people it could provoke, it had to provoke this fiend. "I'm sorry, you don't even have the qualifications to be my slave." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he nodded at Li Changhe and Li Changhe. The two understood and immediately released their aura, attacking the white dragon. "Bastard, are you forcing me? I'll fight it out with you." The white dragon suddenly roared and a destructive aura rushed out of its body. Self-destruct. The gloomy middle-aged man's expression changed. Swish. At this moment, Fire Lotus returned and destroyed the white dragon's sea of qi with a finger. Li Changhe and Li Changhe immediately rushed over. Roar, roar, accompanied by endless miserable howls, the white dragon was beaten to death. Qin Feiyang glanced at the white dragon, then looked at Fire Lotus and asked, "How is it?" "Nothing unusual." Fire Lotus shook her head. Whoosh! Before her voice died away, Jiang Dafei flew over and landed in front of Qin Feiyang, respectfully handing over a Qianquan bag. Qin Feiyang opened it and saw that it was full of Qianquan rings and Qianquan bags. Without a doubt, the treasures in the treasury were all in these Qianquan rings and Qianquan bags. "Take it." Qin Feiyang handed the Qianquan bag to Fire Lotus. Jiang Dafei glanced at the gloomy middle-aged man, then at Li Changhe and Li Changhe, and asked suspiciously, "Young lord, who are they?" Wang Daoyuan held the white dragon's body and flew over, smiling, "Commander, don't you know them?" "You." Jiang Dafei looked at him suspiciously. Wang Daoyuan took a face-restoring pill and quickly recovered his true appearance. "Wang Daoyuan. So it's you." Jiang Dafei looked at Wang Daoyuan in astonishment. Surprised. "I, a person who wants to enter the Dragon God Palace, has become the young lord's subordinate." Wang Daoyuan laughed. "It is indeed unexpected." Jiang Dafei nodded. "This is Li Changhe, also planning to enter the Dragon God Palace, but now he is also following the young lord." Wang Daoyuan pointed at Li Changhe and introduced him. "Nice to meet you." The two of them cupped their hands and greeted. As for him, Wang Daoyuan looked at the gloomy middle-aged man, frowned, and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Young lord, this person already knows everything about us, shouldn't we?" With that, Wang Daoyuan made a gesture of cutting his throat. The gloomy middle-aged man was shocked and quickly knelt in the air, shouting, "Young lord, I am also willing to follow you. Jiang Dafei glanced at the gloomy middle-aged man, then looked at Wang Daoyuan. So, he is not one of us? No. Wang Daoyuan shook his head and briefly explained the situation. Hearing this, Jiang Dafei's eyes suddenly surged with killing intent, and he slammed his palm towards the gloomy middle-aged man. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang quickly stopped him. Jiang Dafei said, Young lord, this person cannot be left alive. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Then if you kill him, how am I going to return to the Dragon God Palace? Don't you have the gate of time and space? You can just teleport there directly. Jiang Dafei said. You even know about the gate of time and space? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Although the Princess of Dragons had seen the gate of time and space, she did not know its name. In other words, this person's identity should not be fake. Opening the gate of time and space will cause a lot of movement on both sides, so it can't be used. Fire Lotus looked at Jiang Dafei and said. Is that so? Jiang Dafei retracted his big hand and looked at the gloomy middle-aged man who was kneeling in the air and trembling. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Then this person, what do you plan to do with him? I still need his help in the future, so I definitely can't kill him. Moreover, he is controlled by the fate contract, so I can't use the seal of slavery and the puppet technique to control him again. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, looked at the gloomy middle-aged man, and said indifferently, From now on, you will follow me closely. If you dare to run out of my sight, then don't blame me for being impolite. Because this was the only way he could be at ease. Yes, yes, yes. Don't worry, I will be honest. The gloomy middle-aged man nodded repeatedly and thanked him repeatedly. At least he was able to keep his life. Get up. Qin Feiyang said. The gloomy middle-aged man got up and stood obediently at the side like a little lamb. He was unprecedentedly obedient. Then we call it a day. Qin Feiyang looked around and looked at Fire Lotus. What else? Don't tell me you still want to stay for dinner. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyang smiled and took out an altar. Young lord, wait a moment. Jiang Dafei hurriedly said. N. Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked at him suspiciously. Young lord, since you have met Fan Yunzhang, you should know the mission given to you by the higher-ups. Jiang Dafei said. Chapter 2436. Qin Feiyang paused and said helplessly, I really don't know about the mission to enter the Dragon God's palace. If you want to know, tell me now. No, no, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Jiang Dafei waved his hand. Then what is it? Qin Feiyang was confused. Jiang Dafei said, the plan to replace the city lord. Get lost. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang immediately activated the teleportation altar. Jiang Dafei was startled and quickly said, Young lord, this is your duty. Duty? I'm not that free. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he sent Fire Lotus and Li Changhe to the castle and then stepped onto the altar with the gloomy middle-aged man. The barrier that sealed the back mountain also disappeared. Young lord. Jiang Dafei shouted anxiously. I've already told Fan Yunzhang about this. Don't come to me. Whoever wants to go can go. Qin Feiyang said coldly and disappeared without a trace. How did this happen? Jiang Dafei stood in the void, stunned. This was completely different from what he had imagined. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Jiang Dafei frowned and smashed his sea of qi with one palm. He then lay down next to the second commander's body. How did this happen? City Lord? Senior Commander? Second Commander? 10 middle-aged men and women flew over and glanced at the devastated land and the 3 city lords. They were a little confused. Quick, help me. Jiang Dafei raised his arm and looked at the 10 people and called out weakly. The senior commander is not dead. Quick! The 10 people immediately flew down and stuffed the divine life pills and spiritual sea pills into Jiang Dafei's mouth. Senior commander, what's going on? Why are the city lord and second commander dead? Where's the herb field? Why is it gone? The 10 people asked in surprise. They were the 10 commanders of the city lord's mansion. They had the cultivation of initial 9 heavens state. They were killed by a single person. The herb farm and the treasure vault were also plundered by that person. The messenger of the dragons was also killed by him. It's too scary. His strength has already surpassed the 9 heavens realm. Jiang Dafei said with a terrified expression. What? Beyond the 9 heavens realm? Isn't that a supreme expert? Why would an utmost powerful being come here to cause a ruckus in the city lord's mansion? Moreover, even if it's an ultimate powerhouse, he wouldn't dare to kill a messenger of the dragons. Could it be that they're from the dragon-slaying palace? The 10 of them were incomparably shocked. I wonder if he's from the dragon-slaying palace. But I'm sure that his background is not simple. One of you, quickly go find the dragon god palace master and report this matter to him. Jiang Dafei said in a deep voice. I'll go. One of the guard commanders responded and immediately activated an altar. Let's talk about Qin Feiyang and Qin Haodong. The gloomy middle-aged man had already returned to his original appearance and rushed up the stone stairs. Qin Feiyang, on the other hand, was hiding inside his spatial divine object. Soon. The gloomy middle-aged man entered the dragon god palace and immediately activated the altar and returned to the valley where Qin Feiyang was. Inside the cave. Qin Feiyang leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. He lowered his head and muttered to himself. The gloomy middle-aged man stood in front of Qin Feiyang, feeling extremely nervous. After a while, Qin Feiyang looked up at the gloomy middle-aged man and shook his head. After thinking about it, I really can't kill you. If he killed this person, he would have to find him the next time he left the Dragon God Palace. How troublesome would that be? For someone who was afraid of trouble, it was a headache. The gloomy middle-aged man quickly bowed and said with a flattering smile, "Thank you, young lord, for not killing me." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, "Remember my name, Li Bu, Er. Don't say anything about young lord." Understood, understood. The gloomy middle-aged man nodded. What's your name? Qin Feiyang asked. Chao Deyuan. The gloomy middle-aged man said. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, what's the status of your friend in the law enforcement hall? He's just an ordinary law enforcement officer with no status. Chao Deyuan said. Then send him a message now and ask him what that young man is doing now. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Chao Deyuan nodded and immediately took out the image crystal. Qin Feiyang quietly retreated to the side. Not long after. A middle-aged man in his 40s appeared. He was about 1.8 meters tall and skinny like a bamboo pole. Brother Hong Yi. Chao Deyuan bowed with a flattering look on his face. Hong Yi looked at Chao Deyuan and said with a smile, Deyuan, what are you doing? His expression was extremely arrogant. Chao Deyuan asked calmly, Brother Hong Yi, that young man won't really become the law enforcement hall master, right? It's hard to say. Hong Yi shook his head. What do you mean? Is there a new situation? Chao Deyuan was stunned and asked in surprise. I heard that the hall master has reported to the ancestral dragon and the revered dragon. I guess the dragons will soon come to our dragon god hall. Only then will we know the result. But I personally think that the young man should be doomed. Hong Yi said. That's true. Those who go against the dragons won't have a good ending. Chao Deyuan nodded in agreement. Hong Yi asked, you sent me a message just to ask about this? It's such a big matter, of course I'm curious. Chao Dayuan smiled flatteringly. Okay. For the sake of our friendship, I'll inform you immediately if there's any news in the future. Hong Yi said. Okay. When you're free, I'll invite you to Moonlight Tower for a drink. Chao Dayuan said. It's a deal. Hong Yi laughed out loud, and the shadow disappeared. Chao Dayuan also put away the image crystal, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Young brotherly, what do you think? Qin Feiyang sighed, if the dragons really come, then I won't be able to escape. Chao Dayuan nodded. Killing the island master and everyone in the assessment was not a small matter. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and smiled, we'll deal with it as it comes. That's easy. Chao Dayuan muttered. If it was him, he would have already run away. How would he dare to stay in the Dragon God Hall? Li Fang, the commander of the guards of the Holy Dragon City Lord Mansion, has an important matter to discuss with the Hall Master of the Dragon God Hall. But at this moment, a loud roar could be heard. Qin Feiyang was startled. I've heard of this Li Fang. He's one of the 10 commanders of the guards, and he's at the 9th heaven realm. He must be here to report to the Hall Master of the Dragon God Hall about the robbery of the City Lord Mansion. Chao Dayuan said. Qin Feiyang frowned, shouldn't this kind of thing be reported directly to the dragons? Why did he come to the Dragon God Hall? Don't you know? The Hall Master of the Dragon God Hall is not only in charge of the Dragon God Hall, but all the cities in the north are also under his jurisdiction. Chao Dayuan said. There's such a thing. Qin Feiyang was startled. It seems that you really don't know. Simply put, the Dragon God Hall is the manager of our north. As for the dragons, the dragon's homeland is not in our north. Therefore, no matter what happens in the cities, they all come to the Dragon God Hall Master. Chao Dayuan explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded and frowned, you mean the dragon's homeland is not in our north? Yes. Chao Dayuan nodded. Then where is their base camp? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. On the Divine Dragon Island. Chao Dayuan said. Divine Dragon Island? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. Why did another unfamiliar place pop up? Yes. Our divine land is divided into the north, west, south, and east. Outside are the North Sea, West Sea, South Sea, and East Sea. Inside, there's also the Inland Sea. The Divine Dragon Island is in the Inland Sea. It means that the Divine Dragon Island is in the center of Divine Land. Chao Dayuan said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded. It said that the Divine Dragon Island is very big. All the dragons live on the Divine Dragon Island, and humans are forbidden to enter. But there's a special case. It's the Dragon God Palace. As long as you cultivate to the half-step imperishable realm in the Dragon God Palace, you can enter the Divine Dragon Island. This is also one of the reasons why everyone enters the Dragon God Palace. I heard that the resources and cultivation environment of the Divine Dragon Island are better than anywhere else. It even has the inheritance of the power of law. Chao Dayuan said. What? The inheritance of the power of law? Qin Feiyang's face suddenly showed a trace of surprise. Chao Dayuan said with a flattering smile, I just heard about it. Whether it's true or not, you have to ask those insiders. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. If the Divine Dragon Island really had the inheritance of the power of law, then this place was really tempting. Phew. Exhaling a long breath, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, it seems that the dragon hunt plan has to be postponed. What do you mean? Chao Dayuan was suspicious. To be honest, I'm not very interested in a divine dragon like the Lord of the Dragon God Palace. What I'm interested in are the young dragons. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Chao Dayuan's face twitched and said, "The young dragons are all at the Divine Dragon Island. So, after entering the Divine Dragon Island, we will carry out the dragon hunt plan." Qin Feiyang said. "You still want to go to the Divine Dragon Island?" When Chao Dayuan heard this, his scalp couldn't help but go numb. How daring was this person? The Divine Dragon Island was the nest of the dragons. Was it a place where humans could set foot? "Let's go. I'll take you to a magical place." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought Chao Dayuan to the castle. At the entrance and exit square. What? The Holy Dragon City's envoy was killed? The herb field and the treasury were looted? A black-clothed man stood in front of the stone gate and looked at the guard commander Li Fong outside with a face full of shock. It was the new island master of the first island. Li Fong nodded. "Go back and tell the great commander to temporarily block this news to avoid causing a commotion," the black-clothed man said in a deep voice. Li Fong asked, "Blocking the news is a small matter, but how should we deal with this matter?" "This matter will have to be decided by the Lord of the Temple. Go back and wait for the news," the black-clothed man said. "Yes." Li Fong responded respectfully, turned around, opened the altar, and left. "What's going on?" "There's actually someone who dares to loot the Holy Dragon City's City Lord Mansion." The black-clothed man frowned and was about to open the altar and leave, but at this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly descended. Chapter 24:37. The black-clothed man was shocked. He turned to look at the entrance and saw a white figure appear out of thin air. From the figure, he could tell that it was a woman. Her entire body was shrouded in a holy radiance, as if an empress had descended. No one dared to blaspheme her. Behind the woman stood an old man in white. The old man had white hair and a white beard. His hands were behind his back, and his expression was indifferent. He had an ethereal aura that transcended all things. "Greetings, Lord Dragon Sovereign." The black-clothed man hurriedly knelt on the ground and prostrated himself. "That's right. The woman was Dragon Sovereign." Dragon Sovereign responded coldly and stepped through the stone door with the old man. He landed on the square and said, "Tell the Dragon God Hall Master to come see me immediately." "Yes." The black-clothed man nodded and immediately sent a voice transmission to the Dragon God Hall Master. When the Dragon God Hall Master learned that Dragon Sovereign had personally come, he immediately activated the altar and rushed to the square without stopping. "Greetings, Lord Dragon Sovereign." When he arrived at the square, he immediately knelt on the ground and greeted respectfully. Dragon Sovereign sized up the Dragon God Hall Master for a while and snorted coldly. "Your physical body was really destroyed. You're really promising. I'm incompetent. Please forgive me, Lord Dragon Sovereign." The Dragon God Hall Master's body trembled as he hurriedly cried out. Dragon Sovereign asked, "Where is the young man now?" "He's sleeping in the Law Enforcement Hall," the Dragon God Hall Master said. "Sleeping?" The white-haired old man standing behind Dragon Sovereign was slightly stunned. He looked at Dragon Sovereign and smiled. He's still in the mood to sleep. It can be seen that this person is very confident. Dragon Sovereign asked, "Then in your opinion, how should we solve this?" "I dare not speak nonsense." The white-haired old man shook his head. When facing Dragon Sovereign, his expression was not like the Dragon God Hall Master's, who was full of reverence for Dragon Sovereign. He appeared to be indifferent. The black-clothed man and the Dragon God Hall Master looked at the white-haired old man with deep fear in their eyes. The black-clothed man bowed. "Hall Master, Dragon Sovereign, Elder Yi, just now, something happened." "What?" The Dragon God Temple Master looked at him suspiciously. "The Holy Dragon City's envoy, the City Lord, and the second commander were all killed. The herb fields and treasury were also plundered." The black-clothed man said. What? The Dragon God Palace Lord's expression changed. Who would be so bold? According to the guard commander Li Fang, he's a half-step undying expert. The man in black said. Half-step undying. The Dragon God Temple Master was shocked. The white-haired old man said, this method is the same as when the Blackstone City's City Lord's mansion was robbed. Just like Blackrock City. The Dragon God Hall Master stared blankly for a moment before asking in shock, Old man, you means that the person who plundered the Holy Dragon City was Qin Feiyang? The white-haired old man smiled but did not answer. It seems that Qin Feiyang has already entered Holy Dragon City. This kid must be dealt with as soon as possible. Long Zun turned to look at the white-haired old man and said, I'll leave this matter to you. Sir, this isn't appropriate. This matter has already been handed over to Her Highness. If this old man interferes now, I'm afraid that Her Highness will be dissatisfied. The white-haired old man said awkwardly. Long Zun said, she's still just a child. She's no match for Qin Feiyang. If Her Highness hears this, her self-esteem will definitely take a hit. The white-haired old man chuckled. How can she grow without experiencing a hit? Long Zun coldly snorted. He looked at the Dragon God Temple Master and said, let's go to the Law Enforcement Hall. Yes. The Dragon God Temple Master respectfully replied and immediately led the dragons and the white-haired old man toward the Law Enforcement Hall. The black-clothed man did not follow and returned to the first island. Long Zun did not conceal his aura, which alarmed everyone in the Dragon God Temple. Including Qin Feiyang and the others who were currently in the castle. Long Zun actually came personally. Fire Lotus frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, this means that Long Zun really cares about the Stone of Destiny. Young master, you can still laugh. We killed the island master. Will the Dragon God Temple Master let it go? After dealing with the youth, the next one will definitely be us. Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan were worried. The gloomy middle-aged Chao Dayuan was so scared that he was paralyzed on the ground, his entire body trembling. What are you afraid of? At most, we'll fight to the death. The big black wolf clamored. It had already awakened, its body had been repaired, and it was full of energy again. Fight to the death. Qin Feiyang glanced at the big black wolf. This guy was a typical example of fearless ignorance. If the castle was not sealed by the small beast, he would not be afraid of Long Zun. But now, in the face of Long Zun, he really had to retreat. Young man, Qin Feiyang muttered. Li Changhe said, young master, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to escape? No hurry. Let's look at the situation first. Chao Dayuan. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and looked at Chao Dayuan. What? Chao Dayuan looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze, his entire person was almost scared silly. Send a message to your friend at any time to understand the situation over there. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Chao Dayuan nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and said, those medicinal herbs, crystal vein, spirit vein, and treasures, I'll leave them to you. You don't have to worry about these things. Fire Lotus said with a smile. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile, turned and entered the cultivation room, sat in front of the desk, and fell into deep thought. The youth's confidence at the square didn't seem to be fake. If the youth really had the strength to fight against Long Zun, then Long Zun's attention might fall on the youth alone, and automatically ignore him. But would it really be like this? Long Zun was the strongest person in the ancient world, and even the ancestor had to retreat. The youth's means were indeed heaven-defying, but would he be on the same level as Long Zun? It seemed that, he couldn't place all his hopes on the youth. But now, what could he use to fight against Long Zun? Apart from the sealed ancient castle, Fire Lotus, Hua Yi, and Fu Tu were the strongest at the moment. But with their strength, it was far from enough. If Long Zun really came looking for him, how was he going to resolve this calamity? Big Brother. At this time, Big Black Wolf walked in. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, raising his head and looking at it suspiciously. When I woke up previously, Big Sister told me what happened at that time, and I implicated you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so passive now. Big Black Wolf blamed himself. You even risked your life to stand in front of me, how could I be indifferent? Let's talk about it later. Do you think that without these things, the first island master would let us go? He won't. At that time in the square, our attitude towards the Dragon God Palace Master had already announced our death sentence. Qin Feiyang said. Big Black Wolf frowned and said, You mean, the Dragon God Palace Master will kill us sooner or later? Definitely. If you were him, would you tolerate two small fries offending you? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Of course not. I will definitely find an opportunity to teach him a lesson. Big Black Wolf said without hesitation. That's right. So this matter has nothing to do with you, no need to blame yourself. Qin Feiyang said. After hearing your words, this emperor's heart feels much better. The Big Black Wolf chuckled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Frankly speaking, when he saw Big Black Wolf risking his life to stand in front of him, he was really touched. He didn't expect this guy to be so loyal. According to his original understanding of Big Black Wolf, he would definitely escape alone when encountering such a crisis. It seemed that there were times when he made a mistake. That's one thing, but we have to think of a way to deal with this. Although the young man is powerful, he's not on our side. Big Black Wolf said. I'm thinking about this as well. As Qin Feiyang spoke, his expression suddenly froze. What's wrong? Big Black Wolf looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang lightly waved his hand, and a palm-sized fire lotus and a 1-meter-long battle sword appeared in front of him, floating in the void. What's this? Big Black Wolf was puzzled. These are my battle souls. I have 3 great battle souls. The purple gold dragon soul, the crimson sword soul, and the 9-leaf fire lotus. These are the crimson sword soul and the 9-leaf fire lotus. Qin Feiyang said. Big Black Wolf studied the crimson sword soul and the 9-leaf fire lotus. He frowned and said, They don't look strong. Why did you summon them? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He asked, You don't think they're strong as well? Of course. Judging by their auras, I can tell they're just ordinary battle souls. Big Black Wolf said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He caressed the crimson sword soul and the 9-leaf fire lotus and said, I used to be like you. I didn't think they were strong, but, speaking of which, Qin Feiyang seemed to be reminiscing. But what? Big Black Wolf asked. Back at the divine site, I encountered a golden small beast and an ice dragon. Both of them should be stronger than the revered dragons, right? That's because they can easily suppress heaven-defying artifacts. Before Qin Feiyang could finish speaking, Big Black Wolf's eyes widened. He exclaimed in shock, Suppress heaven-defying artifacts. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. My goodness. How terrifying are they, then? Big Black Wolf was shocked. I don't know how terrifying they are, but I do know that they seem to be friends of the Creator. Qin Feiyang said. What's that? The Creator's friends? Big Black Wolf's eyes trembled. Why did it sound more terrifying? Even the Creator was involved. It was hard to imagine what Qin Feiyang had experienced in the past. At that time, the ice dragon attacked me. I thought I was dead for sure. However, at that moment, they came out. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he looked at the 2 war souls again. His eyes were filled with gratitude. That time. If it were not for the 2 war souls' protection, he would have died. And then? Big Black Wolf's curiosity was piqued. Sometimes, you're smart, but why are you so stupid at other times? It's not hard to imagine that they protected me. Otherwise, why would I be sitting here talking to you now? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Big Black Wolf smiled sheepishly and looked at the two war souls again. Were they really that powerful? How could they tell? They were very ordinary. If these words came from someone else, it would not believe them even if it was beaten to death. However, since Qin Feiyang said it, it had to be true. Rumble. At this time, an ear-splitting loud noise suddenly sounded. Following closely, the entire Dragon God Palace trembled violently. The mountains and the earth on the various islands were shaking violently. Chapter 24:38. What's going on? Big Black Wolf was shocked. Qin Feiyang also stood up. Did the young man and Long Zun fight? Let's go. Qin Feiyang grabbed Big Black Wolf and appeared in the cave. When they ran out of the cave and stood in the sky above the valley, they found that the surrounding void was already filled with people. Everyone's eyes were looking at the depths of the Dragon God Palace. The sound of the battle really came from there. Big Black Wolf said, "If he really makes a move, what will the result be? Who knows?" Qin Feiyang stared at the depths of the Dragon God Palace. The distance was too far and he couldn't see anything. He could only hear the rolling sounds of battle. Woo-woo. Gradually, gusts of wind swept over like a Category 12 typhoon. Immediately after, a wave of battle surged over like a torrent. They are approaching here. Someone was surprised. I don't think so. Because the speed of the sound is fast, it reached here first. And the battle waves are slower, so it's only now. But isn't this battle a little too frightening? Everyone's face was full of shock. Under this fluctuation, they felt as insignificant as ants. Qin Feiyang and Big Black Wolf also had the same feeling. Should we go and take a look? Someone suggested. I want to, but we are not qualified to go to other islands. Someone said unwillingly. All of you stay here obediently and don't move. That is not something you are qualified to join in the fun. The black-clothed man suddenly appeared and shouted sternly. This is too much. You actually said that we are not even qualified to join in the fun. There should be a limit to humiliating people. Someone complained in a low voice. The black-clothed man glanced at everyone, and his gaze suddenly fell on Qin Feiyang and Big Black Wolf. His injuries have healed so quickly. Looking at the lively Big Black Wolf, a hint of surprise flashed in the black-clothed man's eyes. Immediately after, the black-clothed man flew towards the man and wolf with a cold light in his eyes. Big Black Wolf looked at the black-clothed man and said, "He is the new island master." Yes. This person is a bit shrewd. Be careful. Qin Feiyang thought. Haven't you already seen through his thoughts? What are you afraid of? The Big Black Wolf sneered. There's no harm in being careful. Qin Feiyang said. Whoosh. The black-clothed man landed beside Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Li Buer, who do you think will lose in the end, Lord Dragon Sovereign or your friend? I don't dare to make wild guesses. Furthermore, I'm not very familiar with that young man, so I don't know how strong he is. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The man in black said, You're not familiar with him. Will he help you? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Maybe he's a warm-hearted person who can't bear to see others bully others. The man in black frowned and said, Are you saying that we, the dragons, are taking advantage of our power to bully others? I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and said, You dragons are so strong. Who would dare to say anything about you? Didn't you just kill the previous island master? The man in black sneered. Qin Feiyang said, but I can't just stand there and not fight back, right? That's true. But sometimes, not fighting back is wiser than attacking. Because if you don't fight back, you might be able to keep your life. The man in black smiled. The big black wolf was stunned and laughed. You're starting to threaten me. Looks like you can't keep up the act anymore. The man in black's expression froze. The big black wolf sneered. People who think they're smart are actually the stupidest. What did you say? The man in black's eyes darkened. It's not wrong. You came to me and said that you wanted to get along with me peacefully. Wasn't it to calm me down and wait for Long Zun to arrive? Now that Long Zun is here, there's no need to pretend anymore. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. The man in black was stunned. To think that Su Zimo saw through it and laughed. You've truly made me see you in a different light. I don't feel honored that you've made me see you in a different light. I only feel that it's a humiliation. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. You, the man in black's eyes shone with a shocking killing intent. If you want to die as well, you can do it. After saying that, Qin Feiyang ignored the man in black and looked into the depths. Continue being arrogant. The moment that person dies, it'll be the time of your death as well. The black-robed man sneered inwardly. He didn't want to embarrass himself any further and looked into the depths. Something's not right. Qin Feiyang suddenly raised his brow. What's wrong? The big black wolf was bewildered. Qin Feiyang sent a voice transmission. The one fighting with the young man is not Long Zun. Not Long Zun. The big black wolf was stunned. I've met Long Zun more than once. I'm quite familiar with her aura. There's no aura of hers in the battle. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. There were two different auras in the battle. One of them was the aura of the young man. The other aura was quite unfamiliar. The big black wolf frowned and said in surprise, could it be the ancestral dragon? Not really. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Back in the galaxy, he had seen the dragons of the ancestral dragon, but this aura was completely different. If it wasn't Long Zun or the ancestral dragon, then who could it be? Judging from the aura, this person's strength was definitely not lower than the ancestral dragon. To think that the dragon clan was hiding such a terrifying supreme expert. Qin Feiyang's mood suddenly became heavy. The more he understood the dragons, the more he felt that dragons were terrifying. About 10 breaths later. The battle, the storm, and the sound gradually dissipated. Is it over? This is too fast. The big black wolf was startled. For such an expert, without 3 days and 3 nights, how could the victor be decided? Let's go. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and turned to fly back to the cave. Don't be arrogant. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. The big black wolf grinned at the black-clothed man and chased after Qin Feiyang. Courting death. The black-clothed man clenched his fists. He wanted to make a move, but he didn't have the courage. Because he was alone now. If Qin Feiyang killed him, Long Zun and the Dragon God Palace Lord wouldn't be able to save him in time. Just you wait. Soon, it will be your end. Inside the cave. Big brother, what's the meaning of this Long Zun? Why didn't he make a move? The big black wolf was suspicious. How would I know? Go, let's go find Chao Deyuan. Qin Feiyang brought the big black wolf into the castle. In the hall. Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan were sorting out the treasures looted from the city lord's mansion. They didn't seem to be very worried. But Chao Deyuan, who was at the side, was frightened. Where's Fire Lotus? Qin Feiyang glanced at the hall and asked Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan. Li Changhe laughed hoarsely, Miss Fire Lotus is outside in the medicine field. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Chao Deyuan. I don't know, what are you afraid of? Long Zun is here in person, how can I not be afraid? Chao Deyuan felt wronged. Long Zun was the empress of the divine continent. Who wouldn't tremble in fear? Only these fearless people in front of him could be so calm. Enough. Send a message to Hong Yi and ask him about the situation. Qin Feiyang said. Let me calm down first. Chao Deyuan took a deep breath to calm the fear in his heart. A moment later. He relaxed a little, walked to a corner, and took out the image crystal. Buzz. After a long time. Hong Yi's virtual image appeared. As soon as he appeared, Hong Yi said fiercely, "Brother, you didn't see how exciting the battle was just now." Chao Deyuan glanced at Qin Feiyang and smiled at Hong Yi. I was just about to ask about this. You don't know, that young man is too powerful. Old Yi, do you know? Hong Yi asked. Old Yi? Chao Deyuan was stunned. Yi Zhong, the one who created the Dragon God Palace. He's also the Grand Hall Master of the Dragon God Palace. Hong Yi said. So it's him. Chao Deyuan suddenly realized and said in surprise, he's here too. Yes. He was fighting with the young man just now. Yi Zhong's strength is needless to say. Even the ancestral dragons may not be his match without a heaven-defying artifact. But that young man's strength is actually on par with Yi Zhong's. Don't you think he's powerful? Hong Yi said in shock. It can't be. Chao Deyuan was also shocked. Hong Yi said unhappily, I saw it with my own eyes just now. How can it be fake? What about Longzuan? Chao Deyuan asked. Longzuan didn't make a move. And it's only a clone. Hong Yi said. Chao Deyuan asked suspiciously, then how did they settle it? I don't know about that. After the battle, the dragons, Old Yi, the young man, and our Grand Hall Master went to the meeting hall. We're not qualified to enter. Hong Yi shook his head. Chao Deyuan said with a smile, all right, let's have a good gathering when we're free. Okay. Hong Yi nodded. Chao Deyuan turned off the image crystal and looked at Qin Feiyang. You've heard it. I don't need to say more. Yi Zhong. Grand Hall Master. Qin Feiyang frowned and looked at Chao Deyuan. Why is there a Grand Hall Master? It's a long story. I'll just say it briefly. It's not only the north that has a Dragon God Palace. There's also a Dragon God Palace in the west, south, and east. And these 4 Dragon God Palaces were all founded by Yi Zhong. As the founder, and with such a strong strength, it's naturally impossible for him to do everything by himself. So, he arranged a Grand Hall Master for each of the 4 Dragon God Palaces. Usually, the affairs of the Dragon God Palaces are managed by the Grand Hall Masters. And Yi Zhong naturally became the Grand Hall Master and basically didn't care about anything. I've been in the Dragon God Palace for more than 10,000 years. This is the first time I've seen him come to the Dragon God Palace. In the past, I've only heard of his name. Chao Deyuan said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. This Yi Zhong has a very high status among the dragons. It's said that even the great ancestral dragons can't compare to him. The revered dragon thinks highly of him. He usually lives on the Divine Dragon Island. The most important thing is that he's not a divine dragon, but a human. Chao Deyuan said. What? He's actually a human. Big Black Wolf exclaimed. Li Changhe stood up and looked at Big Black Wolf. We've also heard rumors about him. He's indeed a human. There's also a rumor that he's not controlled by the revered dragon and joined the dragons willingly. Wang Daoyuan added. Chapter 2439. How preposterous. Not only did he willingly submit to the dragons, but he also created such a cruel dragon god palace. Is he even worthy of being a human? In this emperor's opinion, he is just a dog by the dragon sovereign's side. The big black wolf angrily roared. Qin Feiyang suspiciously said, everyone has their own ambitions, why are you so agitated? Big brother, can't you see? I am speaking up for you. Look at you now, to destroy the dragons and break the rule of the dragons, how much effort have you put in? Look at this Yizhong. The name is quite good, but what about the way he acts? He clearly has the strength, but he wants to rely on the dragons, he is simply a disloyal and unjust bastard. The big black wolf said. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily and said, don't worry about others, just be yourself. I understand. Have a clear conscience. Don't worry, since we are already brothers, this emperor will definitely support you to the end. The big black wolf grinned. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, this guy is getting more and more interesting. Young master, before the results are out, we really can't be careless. Yes. It's best to be prepared at any time. Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan looked at Qin Feiyang, their expressions very serious. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded. All right then. The two buried their heads and continued to organize the treasures. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then brought Chao Deyuan and the big black wolf out of the ancient castle. Chao Deyuan looked outside the cave, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, why don't you let me stay in your ancient castle? This emperor is puzzled, how did such a coward like you have the courage to come to the Dragon God Palace? The big black wolf looked at Chao Deyuan angrily. It had seen many people who were greedy for life and afraid of death, but it was the first time it met such a coward. You think I am like you? You have heaven-defying divine artifacts, at least escaping won't be a problem. But me? There's nothing. Once I'm abandoned by you, there's only one way out. Chao Deyuan lowered his head, feeling wronged. You win. The big black wolf was speechless. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, if you want to stay in the castle, you have to see if you have the qualifications. Chao Deyuan was taken aback and pursed his lips as he said, isn't it just a spatial divine object, still talking about qualifications? You know nothing. Do you know what kind of spatial divine item the castle is? Do you think that divine object in your trashy space can compare to it? The big black wolf was instantly enraged. Don't. There's no need to be angry with him, and there's no need to explain to him. Qin Feiyang stopped the big black wolf. A frog at the bottom of a well. How pathetic. The big black wolf looked disdainfully at Chao Deyuan and did not continue to be angry. It was not worth getting angry with such an ignorant person. Chao Deyuan timidly glanced at the big black wolf, then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, then what do we do now? Wait. Qin Feiyang said. Wait for what? Chao Deyuan was puzzled. Wait for news. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he looked at the big black wolf and said, go out for a walk. If you have any news, come back and tell me immediately. However, don't go too far. If anything happens, I won't be able to save you in time. It's just asking for information. Can you stop me? The big black wolf laughed disdainfully, then ran out like a wisp of smoke. Qin Feiyang summoned his crimson sword soul and the nine-leaf fire lotus again. He lowered his head and pondered. 2 war souls. Alas, they're just ordinary war souls. They're useless. Chao Deyuan was shocked when he saw the 2 war souls. Then, he shook his head with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Time passed silently. An hour later. The big black wolf ran into the cave abode in a hurry. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang looked at it. The big black wolf panted and said, I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He said, let's hear the good news first, then. The good news is that Long Zun's clone has left. As for us, nobody mentioned it. I reckon Long Zun didn't think much of it. The big black wolf said. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang's heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally calmed down. Chao Dayuan heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the big black wolf and asked, "What's the bad news?" The big black wolf glanced at him indifferently. Then, it looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "The bad news is that Yi Zhong stayed behind in the Dragon God Temple. That's nothing. After all, he's the Grand Temple Master of the Dragon God Temple." Chao Dayuan said. "Shut up." The big black wolf glared at him. Chao Dayuan smiled bitterly. However, at the same time, Qin Feiyang frowned again. What was Yi Zhong doing in the Dragon God Temple? If it was just staying in the Dragon God Temple, it wouldn't be a big deal. But the problem is that he actually let the original Temple Master of the Dragon God Temple go to Holy Dragon City. The big black wolf said. What? Let the Temple Master go to Holy Dragon City? Then who will manage the affairs of the Dragon God Temple? Chao Dayuan was surprised. Qin Feiyang said, "Is there a need to think about it? Yi Zhong will manage it personally." Chao Dayuan shook his head. That's impossible. He's the Grand Temple Master. How can he manage these trivial matters? But isn't the truth already in front of us? The Dragon God Temple Master went to Holy Dragon City. All the affairs of the Dragon God Temple naturally fall on Yi Zhong's head. The big black wolf said. Chao Dayuan was puzzled. Why would he do that? Isn't it troublesome? The big black wolf gnashed its teeth and roared, "Can you shut up? I'm annoyed when I hear you talk." Okay. Chao Dayuan nodded repeatedly. The big black wolf took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Big brother, what do you think? Yi Zhong stayed in the Dragon God Temple in the north. I think, on one hand, it's to keep an eye on the young man. After all, the young man's methods are too heaven-defying. Someone has to keep an eye on him. On the other hand, he should be coming for me," Qin Feiyang said. The big black wolf grinned and said, "That's what I think too." "Then tell me about it." Qin Feiyang looked at him curiously. "Dragon's princess can't catch you after so long. Long Zun will definitely be anxious. Then what should we do? She can't just go herself and waste time, can she? Moreover, if she personally comes to deal with a descendant of Qin Batian, she won't be able to keep her face. Because others will laugh at her behind her back. Yi Zhong, on the other hand, is strong and resourceful. He's definitely smart. Naturally, Yi Zhong is the best candidate." The big black wolf said. "Amazing. I really didn't expect you to be so smart." Qin Feiyang smiled. The big black wolf's words were really beyond his expectations. Child's play. The big black wolf smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang said, "It seems that now, we not only have to guard against princess dragons, but also Yi Zhong." The big black wolf said, "But for now, there won't be any danger." Qin Feiyang nodded. Because of the young man, whether it was the people of the first island or the black-clothed man, they did not dare to attack him. When he had time, he had to thank this person properly because he saved him a lot of trouble. Qin Feiyang smiled. "Since the crisis is over, let's go cultivate." "What about me?" Chao Dayuan could not help but ask hurriedly. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led the big black wolf and Chao Dayuan into the castle. Chao Dayuan's nervous mood finally relaxed. Qin Feiyang said, "Go and help." "Okay." Chao Dayuan nodded and immediately ran to Li Changhe's side to help tidy up the treasures. "There's a cultivation room upstairs. After tidying it up, you guys can also go and cultivate. As for the soul stone, you can take it from the fire lotus." Qin Feiyang looked at Li Changhe and said with a smile. "Thank you, young master." When the two heard this, they were overjoyed and quickly got up to thank him. Why did they enter the Dragon God Palace? It was to get better and more resources. However, even if they entered the Dragon God Palace, the resources were limited. Take whatever they wanted. There was never such a possibility. Unless you were the child of Long Zun. When they were first enslaved by Qin Feiyang, they were quite depressed and missed the opportunity to enter the Dragon God Palace. But now that they heard Qin Feiyang's words, all the negative emotions in their hearts instantly disappeared. Only excitement was left. Because the words, "take whatever they want," meant that they would have endless soul stones and resources in the future. This was what they had dreamed of before. Following this person was worth it. What about me? The big black wolf was slightly stunned and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang fawningly. Same. Qin Feiyang smiled and turned to enter the cultivation room and began to cultivate in seclusion. Awesome. The big black wolf laughed and looked at Chao Dayuan. He said proudly, "Kid, are you jealous?" Jealous? Unfortunately, this is something you can't get. Li Changhe and Li Changhe glanced at Chao Dayuan, their faces full of pride. Chao Dayuan was indeed envious and jealous. And even more regretful. Why was he so stupid at that time and ran to tip them off? If he had served this person wholeheartedly from the beginning, he might have ended up like this big wolf dog and Li Changhe. This difference in thinking, the difference in treatment was like heaven and earth. Time passed like this, day by day. The Dragon God Palace also gradually regained its peace. Neither the young man nor the black-clothed man came to look for Qin Feiyang again, as if they had been forgotten. However, Fan Yunzhang did look for Qin Feiyang a few times. Of course. He definitely wouldn't come to the Dragon God Palace to look for Qin Feiyang, so he used the image crystal. And his purpose of looking for Qin Feiyang was to persuade Qin Feiyang to complete the task of replacing all the city lords in the north. But every time Fan Yunzhang heard about this, Qin Feiyang would directly turn off the image crystal. He was already too busy with his own affairs, and he still had the mood to care about other people's business. If he had this free time, he might as well cultivate in seclusion. This made Fan Yunzhang very helpless. Later, Fan Yunzhang found Jiang Dafei and asked Jiang Dafei to persuade Qin Feiyang, but it was useless. In the end, Qin Feiyang, who was annoyed by the two of them, directly said that it was useless even if the ancestor came. As a result, the two of them could only give up helplessly. As for Jiang Dafei, he also found the immortal general and got a certificate to confirm his identity to Qin Feiyang. This certificate was also the twin dragon pendant of the mermaid princess. Because in this immortal general's opinion, the twin dragon pendant was the best token. And this immortal general naturally learned from Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei that Qin Feiyang refused this task. Regarding this, he was also very helpless. If it was someone else, he would dare to beat, scold, and force them, but this was the descendant of the Qin emperor, who dared to touch him? He could only persuade him slowly. Or think of another way. Chapter 2440. In the blink of an eye. 3.5 years had passed. For the creatures of the divine land, let alone 3 years, even 300 years, or 3,000 years, was just a blink of an eye. But for Qin Feiyang, it was a very long seclusion. Because more than 10,000 years had passed in the castle. According to the time in the castle, he was already a 10,000-year-old antique. Boom! And on this day, his cultivation had broken through to the perfected Divine Lord realm. To break through to the Divine Lord realm, he needed to consume 4 billion soul stones. According to his refining speed, it would take him about 850 soul stones a day, which would take about 12,000 years. But according to the castle, it would only take him about 1,200 days. In years, it would take him 3.5 years. After the breakthrough, He did not stop and immediately stabilized his realm, preparing to break through to the perfected Divine Lord realm in one go. Because once he broke through to the perfected Divine Lord realm, he could take the Chaos Divine Pill and directly break through to the half-step Divine Lord realm. His cultivation would increase by a lot in an instant. Buzz. But things did not go as planned. The image crystal rang. Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal. Two phantoms appeared. It was Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei. Aren't you annoying? When Qin Feiyang saw them, he was ready to turn off the image crystal. Jiang Dafei hurriedly said, "Young lord, don't be anxious. Let us finish." Qin Feiyang frowned and said expressionlessly, "Speak." Jiang Dafei said, "Someone wants to see you." "See me?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, "Who?" "A very important person." Jiang Dafei said. "Yes. It's very important to you." Fan Yunzhang also said. "Very important." Qin Feiyang thought for a while and immediately asked, "Is it the ancestor?" "You'll know when you come." The two of them smiled mysteriously. Qin Feiyang said lightly, "It's useless even if the ancestor comes." Jiang Dafei and Fan Yunzhang looked at each other and could not help but smile bitterly. Fan Yunzhang said helplessly, "Anyway, come over first. I'll give you the pill fire." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Where shall we meet?" "Definitely not in the city lord's mansion. Fenghua Tower it is. This subordinate has already booked a room. Room 7 on the 7th floor." Jiang Dafei said. "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the image crystal. "Who wants to see me?" Qin Feiyang muttered to himself with a puzzled look in his eyes. He stood up, put away the image crystal, and walked out of the cultivation room. Inside the hall, there was no one there. Li Changhe, Wang Daoyuan, and the big black wolf had already gone into seclusion. He walked out of the hall and stood outside the castle, looking at the medicinal field. Looking at the current medicinal field, Qin Feiyang's face was suddenly filled with shock. In the beginning, this was only a very small medicinal field. But now, the medicine field had almost occupied half of the devil's land. All the medicinal herbs that Qin Feiyang recognized were available here. There were also some that even he didn't recognize. Furthermore, after so many years of growth, the medicinal herbs had also changed greatly. For example, the Nirvana divine tree that he had first encountered was originally only 1 meter tall. But now, it was dozens of feet tall, with lush branches and leaves, like a large umbrella towering into the sky. There were hundreds of Nirvana divine fruits on it. Looking at the essence chi and energy that filled the medicinal field, it was so dense that it had formed a mist. It was just like the sea of clouds in the Dragon God Palace. The medicinal herbs were overflowing with multicolored light. Coupled with the spiritual essence and energy, the demonic land, which was originally fraught with danger, was now like a fairyland. It could be said that cultivating in seclusion in the medicinal field, even without refining soul stones, one's cultivation speed could still increase by leaps and bounds. Just like at this moment. Chao Deyuan was cultivating in the small courtyard next to it. Originally, he was half a step into the immortal realm. After all these years, he had already stepped into the immortal realm. "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang walked into the small courtyard and looked at him coldly. Chao Deyuan was shocked and hurriedly opened his eyes. He got up and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Brotherly, Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "I don't think I allowed you to cultivate here." Chao Deyuan panicked and said, "Aren't I idle? Besides, more than 10,000 years have passed. What else can I do if I don't cultivate? But don't worry, I didn't take a single soul stone here. You have to have the guts." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and asked, "Where's the fire lotus?" "I don't know. Half a year ago, she left the Devil's Land with the 3 Black Panther brothers. Chao Deyuan shook his head. Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and extended his perception infinitely. Swish! In the next moment, he disappeared into thin air from Chao Deyuan's sight. Chao Deyuan finally heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the medicinal field around him, his eyes were filled with greed. If these medicinal herbs were all his, how good would that be? The Desert of Death. In the deepest part, 100-story stone pagoda stood tall in the desert. This was the place that the creatures of the Black Tortoise world called the Divine Treasury. In the past, this was the end. But now, there was a vast desert in front of the Divine Treasury. In the sky above the desert, 1 man and 3 beasts scanned the front, their eyes full of surprise. It was the 3 Black Panther brothers and Fire Lotus. The Black Tortoise world has grown a lot. Qin Feiyang walked silently beside Fire Lotus and looked ahead. Boss! The 3 Black Panther brothers were slightly taken aback and immediately looked at Qin Feiyang excitedly. You're out. Fire Lotus also smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the 3 Black Panther brothers. He smiled and said, You've improved a lot. In the past, the 3 Black Panther brothers were perfect monarchs. But now, their cultivation had reached the half-step divine realm. It was all bestowed by Big Sister. Not only did she help us open the door of potential, but she also gave us chaos divine pills. And she let us take any soul stones. The 3 Black Panther brothers' eyes were full of gratitude. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, That means you're very obedient. That's natural. Big Sister's words are an imperial edict. Of course. That includes you, boss. The 3 brothers' faces were full of flattery. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He looked at Fire Lotus and said, What are you doing here? I'm observing the changes in the Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus pointed ahead and said, Look, after more than 10,000 years of growth, the Black Tortoise world has grown a lot. Qin Feiyang looked up. From the desert, it could be seen that the Black Tortoise world had grown by at least 100 miles. In other words, the Black Tortoise world's current diameter was more than 200 miles. Because the 4 sides of the Black Tortoise world were growing. 100 miles on each side, 200 miles on both sides added together. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes showed a trace of doubt. At the end of the desert was a dark area. What is that? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Fire Lotus said, At first, I didn't know. Later on, I heard from that brat that it's a chaotic zone. That brat appeared before. Qin Feiyang was startled. Yes. He appeared a few times. He seems to be observing the changes in the Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus nodded. Chaotic zone, Qin Feiyang looked again and frowned. According to him, the chaotic zone is the state before heaven and earth were formed. And inside the chaotic zone, there is an extremely terrifying pressure. Other than the ruler of the world, no one can enter. Fire Lotus said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and asked, Then I can enter? Of course. You are the master of the Black Tortoise world, where can't you go? Fire Lotus nodded with a smile. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, and he took a step forward. In front of the chaotic zone, he took a tentative step forward. When he stepped into the chaotic zone, he didn't feel any obstruction or pressure. Thus, his entire body entered the chaotic zone. In front of him, everything was gray and there was nothing. It was dead silent. After observing for a while, Qin Feiyang retreated from the chaotic zone and returned to Fire Lotus's side. How is it inside? Fire Lotus looked at him curiously. There's nothing. Qin Feiyang shook his head. It's just as that brat said. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. I've tried many times to enter and take a look, but I've never succeeded. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang smiled, and said, since it's clear that the black tortoise world is growing, then there's no need to pay so much attention in the future. You should also cultivate well. Actually, I've been cultivating all this time. Fire Lotus said. You've been cultivating all this time? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why didn't he see it? Fire Lotus smiled faintly. What I'm cultivating is not to increase my cultivation, but to comprehend the profound meaning of laws. Comprehend the profound meaning of laws? Qin Feiyang looked at her in surprise. Yes. There are also strong and weak undead realm experts. And this kind of strength, in addition to divine arts and divine artifacts, there is also the power of laws. A person who controls the power of laws can easily kill a person who doesn't control the power of laws. Fire Lotus explained. You don't need to say this, I can think of it. But what kind of profound meaning of laws are you comprehending? Qin Feiyang was curious. That depends on the opportunity. Fire Lotus said. Opportunity? Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. Without a clear goal, how can you comprehend it? The profound meaning of laws is not comparable to others. Only when the profound meaning of laws awakens will you know what kind of power of laws you have. Fire Lotus said. I don't understand. Qin Feiyang shook his head. It's normal that you don't understand now. Because only when you break through to the undead realm can you slowly understand it. Fire Lotus said with a smile. All right. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and said, let's go back. I still have something to do. Where are you going? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Holy Dragon City. Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei sent a message saying that someone wants to see me. I guess it's my ancestor. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Originally, he had always wanted to have a good chat with his ancestor, but now, he had a headache. Fire Lotus asked with a smile, are you afraid that the Qin Emperor will force you to accept that mission? Of course. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He really didn't have the time. Why couldn't they just let him go? There were so many people in the Dragon Slayer Palace. Why couldn't they just let someone else do it? Since the Qin Emperor gave you this mission, it will definitely help you in the future. Why don't you accept it? Fire Lotus persuaded. Qin Feiyang said unhappily, I accept this mission, and you want to help me complete it? Sure. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang was stunned. She agreed immediately. Wasn't she afraid of trouble at all? This girl. Chapter 2441. In fact, Qin Feiyang could see that Fire Lotus wasn't afraid of trouble. It was all to help him. Otherwise, how could she have the time to care about other people's business? But it was because of this that he was even more unwilling to accept this mission. Because Fire Lotus had already helped him a lot. He couldn't let her waste her energy on these trivial matters. Boom! Just as Qin Feiyang was about to bring Fire Lotus and the three brothers back to the Devil's Land, a terrifying divine power suddenly emerged. What? The three brothers were shocked. How could the Black Tortoise world have such a terrifying divine power? Because this divine power had already surpassed Fire Lotus. It seems to be from the Netherworld Sea. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. He looked towards the source of the aura and said in a deep voice. Let's go take a look. Boss Black Panther said. We have to go take a look. He's actually one step ahead of me and broke through to the initial imperishable realm. Fire Lotus laughed. The three brothers looked at Fire Lotus in surprise. Listening to this, Big Sister knew him. Qin Feiyang also suddenly smiled and said, so it's Hui Yi. After that, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and searched for Hui Yi's location. Soon, He waved his hand and brought Fire Lotus and the three brothers, descending in the sky above a black ocean. Below was the Netherworld Sea, as far as the eye could see. But the strange thing was that the water in the Netherworld Sea was black and emitted a hair-raising aura. Although the Netherworld Sea was one of the forbidden areas of the Black Tortoise world, the creatures of the Black Tortoise world would often risk their lives to enter the Netherworld Sea. Because here, Fire Lotus also hid many divine items. Directly below, there was a small island. The island was filled with rocks and was lifeless. In the center of the island, a young man wearing a fiery robe with long fiery red hair was sitting cross-legged on a huge rock. Who else could it be but Hui? That aura was like a volcanic eruption, rolling out. Between heaven and earth, the wind whistled, flying sand and gravel. This momentum not only alarmed Qin Feiyang and the others, but also the entire Black Tortoise world's living beings. Almost all living beings were looking at the Netherworld Sea. Those who were searching for treasures in the Netherworld Sea were even more shocked. Whose aura was it? How could it be so terrifying? Was there such a powerful character in the Black Tortoise world? A huge city was located somewhere in the Black Tortoise world. This was the site of the Vanga League. At this moment, two middle-aged men stood above the city, looking at the Netherworld Sea. If Qin Feiyang was here, he would definitely recognize them as the two guards he had brought into the Black Tortoise world. Pai Lupi, Theta Wang. Due to the Black Tortoise world's time laws, both of their cultivations had improved by leaps and bounds. He also relied on his powerful strength to become the overlord of the Black Tortoise realm. Pai Lupi said in shock, Theta Wang, this aura is terrifying. Yeah. It feels like it's already beyond the Nine Heavens realm. I think he's definitely not from the Black Tortoise world. Theta Wang said in a deep voice. Yeah. There's no such person in the Black Tortoise world. If I'm not wrong, he must be Qin Feiyang's friend. Pai Lupi said. We can't afford to offend these people. In the future, we'd better send people to guard the Devil's Land. Anyone who dares to enter the Devil's Land will be killed without mercy. Theta Wang said. I agree. Pai Lupi nodded. The other living beings in the Black Tortoise world didn't know, but they knew very well what kind of people lived in the Devil's Land. They definitely couldn't afford to offend them. The Netherworld Sea. Qin Feiyang, Fire Lotus, and Black Panther stood in the air, silently looking at Hui. Hui's aura grew stronger and stronger. About half an hour later. Boom! The island under Hui shattered with a loud bang. The surrounding Netherworld Sea surged with huge waves, and many people were swallowed by the sea. The seawater of the Netherworld Sea had an extremely strong corrosive power. No one who was swept into the sea could escape. They were all corroded by the seawater, and not even their bones were left. Swish! At this moment, Hui opened his eyes, and two rays of light burst out. Ha! I finally broke through, dragons, just you wait, I'll find you sooner or later to settle the score. Hui suddenly stood up and laughed. Not bad. Fire Lotus said. Huh. Hui was slightly taken aback. He looked up at the sky and asked in surprise, why are you guys here? Qin Feiyang was speechless, you've caused such a big commotion, how can we not come and take a look? Hui was stunned. Looking at the rolling Netherworld Sea, he quickly retracted his aura. At this moment, the Netherworld Sea began to slowly calm down. If you want to break through, then break through. Why do you have to make such a big scene? I wonder how many people have died in vain in the Netherworld Sea. Fire Lotus rolled her eyes. Hui smiled embarrassedly and flew in front of the two of them. He looked at the three Black Leopard brothers and said, you guys got a new pet. When he subdued the three Black Leopard brothers, Hui had already gone to cultivate, so he didn't know what had happened during this period of time. Qin Feiyang said, not a pet, a partner. Alright, All right, all right. Hui grinned, looked at Fire Lotus, and said, all these years, did Qin Feiyang bully you? What are you talking about? How could he bully me? Fire Lotus was speechless. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said to Hui, you don't have to hide it anymore, Qin Dage already knows my identity. Fire Lotus did not send a sound transmission to him. What the hell? Already know? Hui was stunned. Do you really think you can hide it from me? You're the disciple of the Vice Palace Master, you really know how to brag. Qin Feiyang sneered. I'm just afraid of being misunderstood by you. You said I have other intentions. Hui smiled. Then can you tell me now why your aura makes me feel inexplicably familiar? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Hui chuckled, is there a need to think about it? I'm your long-lost brother. Fire Lotus couldn't help but laugh out loud. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. This guy was too good at bullshitting. Brother? And long-lost? He really admired this guy's imagination. I won't tease you anymore. Actually, it's because of this. Hui laughed and took out a battle sword from his body. What? Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The battle sword was purple gold in color. But it was only half of it, without a sword tip. When this broken sword appeared, the sense of familiarity became even stronger. Hui smiled, I believe you're not unfamiliar with this broken sword, right? Of course not. Because this broken sword was exactly the same as the broken sword in the ancestral statue's hand. Qin Feiyang was surprised, why is it in your hands? Back then, the battle with the dragons caused my Nine Heavens Palace to suffer heavy losses. Your ancestor felt guilty, so when he left the broken sword in Nine Heavens Palace. Hui said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the broken sword suspiciously. According to Hui, his ancestor left this broken sword as compensation for Nine Heavens Palace. But this broken sword didn't look very strong. As if seeing Qin Feiyang's doubts, Hui smiled, don't be fooled by its appearance. This broken sword has always been sealed, but it's actually a heaven-defying divine artifact. What? A heaven-defying divine artifact? Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. However, it wasn't sealed by itself, but by someone. As for who sealed it, your ancestor doesn't know, and of course, I don't know either. All these years, I've tried to undo the seal, but I couldn't do it. Hui rubbed the broken sword and said regretfully. Seal, Qin Feiyang muttered, and said, let me see. Hui handed the broken sword to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it in his hand, and his spirit sense rushed towards the broken sword. Don't! Seeing this, Hui's face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly shouted. But it was too late. Qin Feiyang's spirit sense had already entered the broken sword. Immediately, a mysterious force surged out and instantly shattered Qin Feiyang's spirit sense. Puff! Qin Feiyang's face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with shock. Didn't you say you were just looking? Why are you still using your spirit sense to peek? I'll tell you. Even my spirit sense can't peek into the seal inside the broken sword. Hui said. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Fire Lotus said angrily. She only found out about this matter now. Hui said aggrievedly, I originally wanted to say it, but I didn't have the time. Fire Lotus stared at Hui, looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked with concern, are you alright? I'm fine. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, his eyes full of surprise. Why would there be such a powerful seal inside this broken sword? Where did the ancestor get this broken sword? Wait. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. The surprise on his face became even stronger. What's wrong? Fire Lotus was suspicious. I remember that Mu Tianyang said that a divine treasure had once appeared in Great Qin's Sea of Reincarnation. At that time, the Lu family's ancestor obtained the thieving heaven realm. The demon ancestor obtained 3,000 incarnations. Mu Tianyang also obtained the gate of time and space. The ancestor also obtained a divine object, but the ancestor had never mentioned it to anyone. What kind of divine object did he obtain? I've always been puzzled. But now that I think about it, could it be that he obtained this broken sword? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Fire Lotus was slightly stunned, and shook her head. I'm afraid you have to ask your ancestor himself, because even Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor didn't know that this broken sword was a heaven-defying divine artifact, which means that your ancestor intentionally hid it. Qin Feiyang nodded, looked down at the broken sword, and returned it to Hua Yi. Forget it. Hua Yi waved his hand. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Back then, he gave me the broken sword because your ancestor wanted to make it up to my 9-heaven palace. But now, Fire Lotus has come back from the dead, and the axe is still here. There's no need to make it up. You are his descendant, so I'll hand it over to you now. You can keep it for yourself, or you can return it to your ancestor in the future. You can deal with it yourself. Hua Yi said. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated, and shook his head. You should return it to your ancestor personally. Are you saying that I'm not the same? Hua Yi was speechless. Of course not. I am me, and my ancestor is my ancestor. We can't be confused. Besides, this is a gift from my ancestor. If he sees it in my hands, he'll probably think that I took it back by force. Qin Feiyang said and forcefully stuffed it into Hua Yi's hands. All right, I'll keep it for you. Hua Yi smiled helplessly and put away the broken sword. Qin Feiyang said, so, back then, you saw through my identity through the broken sword, and then approached me? Yes. But it was mainly because of Fire Lotus. I was too familiar with her. Even though she was still an undead at that time, and even though she hid her true appearance, I recognized her immediately. So, I approached you to protect her. Hua Yi said. Qin Feiyang said, then, in the future, should I call you Yi Xiaoyao, or continue to call you Hua Yi? You even know my real name? Hua Yi was stunned. I knew it long ago. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. Ha, Hua Yi laughed dryly and waved his hand. It's just a name, you can call me whatever you want. But during the time I was in seclusion, did anything interesting happen? His face was full of curiosity. Chapter 2442. Qin Feiyang was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. With a wave of his hand, the 3 men and 3 beasts instantly descended above the medicine field. What's going on? When he saw the medicine field at this moment, Hua Yi's face was full of shock. Compared to when he left, the difference was like heaven and earth. Fire Lotus smiled and said, a lot of things have happened in the years you were gone. Looking at this magnificent medicine field, you can tell that a lot of interesting things must have happened. Tell me quickly. Hua Yi looked at Fire Lotus with interest. Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 men and 3 beasts and said with a smile, you guys take your time, I'll go to Holy Dragon City first. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Black Panther asked, boss, why don't you ask how many crystal veins and soul lines we got this time? How many? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Including the soul lines and crystal veins from Black Rock City, we now have a total of 1,200 soul lines and 2,300 crystal veins. And the soul lines and crystal veins in Black Rock City that were originally below level 9 have now evolved into divine level soul lines and crystal veins. Black Panther said excitedly. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked, are they all rank 1 and 2? No. Many of the soul lines and crystal veins in Holy Dragon City are rank 3, and there are even more than a dozen rank 5 soul lines and crystal veins. Black Panther said. In other words, the soul lines and crystal veins in the north are at most rank 5? Qin Feiyang said. That's the case for now. But the Dragon God Palace must have soul lines and crystal veins above rank 5. Boss, when are we going to make a move on the Dragon God His Highness? The 3 Black Panther brothers laughed evilly, looking ready to make a move. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Were these 3 brothers bandits? Wait. What are you talking about? What Dragon God Palace? Hua Yi looked at them suspiciously. I'll tell you later. The Black Panther boss waved his paw at Hua Yi, then looked at Qin Feiyang, instigating, Boss, for the sake of the Black Tortoise World's billions of lives, the Dragon God's Hall's crystal vein and soul vein must not be let go. Billions? Qin Feiyang was speechless. How could there be so many people in the Black Tortoise World? Let's talk about it later. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Chao Deyuan, who was standing in the courtyard, and said, Come here. As for Chao Deyuan, after Qin Feiyang and the others returned, he had been staring at Hua Yi, his eyes filled with fear. This was because he could feel that the aura Hua Yi was exuding was even stronger than the fire lotus. One had to know. The fire lotus was a half-step indestructible. If he was stronger than the fire lotus, didn't that mean he had already surpassed the half-step undying level? Just how many supreme experts were hidden by this person's side? You didn't hear me? Chao Deyuan said. The waiter was stunned and smiled, Okay, I'll bring you 2 up. No need, I know the place. Chao Deyuan waved his hand. Okay then. Please help yourself. The waiter nodded and went to the next guest. 7th floor. Inside the 7th private room. 2 middle-aged men in ordinary clothes sat in front of the coffee table, looking extremely anxious. Why haven't they come yet? Could it be that young lord stood us up? The 2 of them were Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei, but they had changed their appearances. After all, Jiang Dafei's status in Holy Dragon City was not low. If they came to Fenghua Tower with their real faces, it would definitely attract attention. Stand us up. Don't say it, maybe it's really possible. Our young lord is too hard to predict. Jiang Dafei sighed. In the past 3 years, Jiang Dafei and Fan Yunzhang had a lot of private contact, so they were quite familiar with each other now. Dong! Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The 2 of them were stunned and looked at the door at the same time. When they came back to their senses, the 2 of them hurried over. When Fan Yunzhang opened the door, he saw 2 unfamiliar faces standing outside. You are? Fan Yunzhang asked with a trace of vigilance. Qin Feiyang said, What do you think? With that, he went straight into the room. Chao Deyuan hurried in as well. Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei looked at each other, closed the door, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. They did not let down their guard. Qin Feiyang looked around the room. Not only was there a tea room, but there was also a separate dining room and bedroom. The decoration was also very luxurious. Qin Feiyang walked into the tea room and sat beside the coffee table. He looked at Fan Yunzhang and Jiang Dafei, took out a facial restoration pill, and threw it into his mouth. Soon, his true appearance was restored. Greetings, young lord. When the 2 of them saw him, they immediately knelt down and saluted. And they also took the facial restoration pill and restored their true appearance. Get up. When you see me in the future, you don't need to be so formal. Be casual. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Yes. The 2 of them got up. Sit down. Qin Feiyang smiled. The 2 of them hurried over and sat opposite Qin Feiyang. Then Fan Yunzhang picked up the teapot and poured tea for Qin Feiyang. Chao Deyuan was very sensible and stood respectfully behind Qin Feiyang. Young lord, we heard that you like tea very much, so we specially brought some good tea for you to taste. Fan Yunzhang laughed. Qin Feiyang looked at the teacup, picked it up and put it at the tip of his nose. Suddenly, the fragrance of the tea assailed his nostrils. Then he took another sip, tasted it carefully for a while, nodded and smiled. It's not bitter or astringent, the tea is mellow and mellow. It's indeed good tea. Looking at Qin Feiyang's satisfied expression, the two of them couldn't help but laugh. Don't think that just because you brought some good tea, I will agree to take on that boring task. Tell me, who wants to see me? Qin Feiyang put down the teacup and said lightly. When he scanned the room earlier, he didn't see anyone else. Hearing that, the smile on the two of their faces immediately froze, and they felt extremely helpless. This young lord treated people really well. Easygoing, kind. He didn't put on any airs. But why was he so stubborn? Chapter 2443. Fan Yunzhang said, the person who wants to see you hasn't arrived yet. Hasn't arrived yet? Can't you show some sincerity? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Judging from the way Fan Yunzhang addressed him, he shouldn't be an ancestor. Because the people of the Dragon Slayer Palace would definitely address their ancestors as Dizun. Wait. Could it be a divine general? Fan Yunzhang took out 6 jade boxes from his interspatial ring and said respectfully, Young master, this is the elixir fire you want. Please take a look. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the 6 boxes opened. Then a wave of hot fire surged out. The entire room seemed to have turned into a big furnace. There was a cluster of elixir fire in each of the 6 boxes. There was a normal elixir fire and a bone-white elixir fire. The 6 clusters of elixir fire gave out different auras. 3 clusters of first-grade elixir fire and 3 clusters of second-grade elixir fire. Not bad. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and sent the 6 boxes to the cultivation room in the castle. In this way, the netherworld demonic flame could be upgraded to a 3rd-grade elixir fire. Based on the current situation, when the netherworld demonic flame was upgraded to a 3rd-grade elixir fire, it should be able to refine 9.5 elixir patterns. Because the current netherworld demonic flame could refine 8.5 elixir patterns with a 2nd-grade elixir furnace. Wait a minute. 9.5. Then I'll be able to refine a divine level elixir with just half a elixir pattern. Qin Feiyang mumbled. In other words, when the netherworld demonic flame evolved to a 3rd-grade divine fire and found a 3rd-grade elixir furnace, wouldn't he be able to refine a divine level elixir? Jiang Dafei. With this thought, Qin Feiyang looked at Jiang Dafei. When he went to the treasure pavilion in Black Stone City, there was no 3rd-grade elixir furnace, so Fan Yunzhang couldn't help. But the Holy Dragon City was different. As the largest city in the north, the Holy Dragon City must have better elixir fires and elixir furnaces. What's wrong, young master? Jiang Dafei looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang asked, who is the current city lord of Holy Dragon City? I haven't decided yet. I'm trying to get it. Jiang Dafei said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. You want to be the city lord? Since there is such an opportunity, this subordinate will definitely not let it go. Jiang Dafei laughed. Young lord, there's something you don't know. Although Brother Jiang is not the city lord yet, he is currently in charge of all the affairs of the city lord's mansion. Actually, I'm no different from the city lord. Fan Yun laughed. There's still a difference between a substitute and a real city lord. It's a pity that the young lord refused to help. Otherwise, I would have become the city lord by now. Jiang Dafei shook his head regretfully. Fan Yunzhang looked at Qin Feiyang. He wanted to know how Qin Feiyang would react if he heard this. But the result was very disappointing. Qin Feiyang remained indifferent. He looked at the two of them indifferently and said, "What's the point of you echoing each other here?" The two of them smiled embarrassedly. Indeed, nothing could escape the young lord's eyes. Qin Feiyang said, "Since it's a substitute, I have a certain amount of authority. Help me find a third-grade divine furnace." Jiang Dafei looked at Fan Yunzhang when he heard this, and a smile appeared on his face. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them suspiciously. "Young lord, please take a look." Jiang Dafei waved his hand, and a pill furnace suddenly appeared. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the pill furnace suspiciously. The pill furnace was bronze in color, with 3 legs and 2 handles. A fiery red bull was engraved on it, shining with a dazzling treasure light. Qin Feiyang got up and walked to the pill furnace. This pill furnace was actually a third-grade divine furnace. Old Fan told me long ago that you needed a pill fire and a pill furnace. So when I was free, I went to the treasure pavilion to auction a third-grade divine furnace. Jiang Dafei smiled. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them in a daze. Not bad. Without saying anything, they knew what he wanted. Fan Yunzhang smiled ingratiatingly. "Young lord, we're so considerate of you, aren't we?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He returned to his seat and said, "Everything else is fine, but the task is off the table." So it was premeditated. There was indeed no free lunch in this world. The two of them smiled bitterly. "This furnace is called the Fire Bull Furnace. You can use it first. When I have enough money, I'll buy a 4th-grade or 5th-grade divine furnace for you." Jiang Dafei handed the pill furnace to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was stunned and hurriedly said, "Holy Dragon City has 4th-grade and 5th-grade divine furnaces?" "Of course. But it's very expensive." Jiang Dafei said. "How much?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The 4th-grade and 5th-grade divine furnaces cost at least 1 trillion divine crystals. Jiang Dafei said. 1 trillion? That's not a lot. You're the acting city lord after all. You don't even have that much divine crystals. Qin Feiyang frowned. When Jiang Dafei heard this, the bitter smile on his face deepened. "Young lord, don't forget that the city lord mansion's treasure vault and herb field were robbed by you. Not a single word was left. Let's talk about it later. Even if you didn't rob the treasure vault and herb field, the sect master of the Dragon God Palace wouldn't dare to use them privately. As for Brother Jiang himself, although he used to be the second commander, he relied on his salary to survive and didn't have any savings at all." Fan Yunzhang explained. "Ah." Qin Feiyang was stunned. He smiled and said, "Then it's not easy for you guys." Fan Yunzhang shook his head and sighed. "We're the lowest members of the Dragon Slayer Palace. It's already not easy to fill our stomachs. Yeah. We can't compare to you, young lord." Jiang Dafei nodded with indescribable bitterness. "Based on what you're saying, as the young hall master, I can get whatever I want." Qin Feiyang frowned. "We wouldn't dare." The two hurriedly waved their hands. "I think that's what you mean. Although both of my ancestors were thearchs of the Dragon Slayer Palace, I've never asked them for a single divine crystal. Everything that I have now was earned by my own hands." Qin Feiyang said. One of his ancestors was Qin Batian and the other was Lu Xingyang. "We know." Jiang Dafei and Fan Yunzhang smiled. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at the two and got up. "Since the divine general isn't here yet, I'll go to the castle first." Then, he took the flaming bull cauldron and disappeared. Divine general. Jiang Dafei and Fan Yunzhang looked at each other. Did the young lord think that the divine general wanted to see him? Inside the castle's cultivation room, Qin Feiyang put down the pill furnace and lowered his head to ponder. After a while, Qin Feiyang turned around and walked to the door. He shouted towards the outside, "Huolian, come here for a bit. Soon. Fire Lotus walked into the castle and looked at Qin Feiyang. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang asked, how many soul stones and divine crystals do we have now? Too many, I haven't counted. Fire Lotus shook her head. A day outside was 10 years in the castle. Qin Feiyang had been in seclusion for more than 10,000 years, and he had already accumulated a large number of soul stones and divine crystals. Take a rank 1 divine level soul line for example. A rank 1 divine level soul line could produce 10,000 soul stones a year. In other words, a single rank 1 god class soul line had produced more than 120 million soul stones in the past 12,000 years. And now, there were more than 1,000 soul lines in the Black Tortoise world, and there were even rank 2, 3, 4, and 5 soul lines. Calculating carefully, the number of soul stones he had now exceeded 100 billion. Not to mention divine crystals. The annual production of a crystal vein was even higher than soul stones. For example, a rank 1 divine level crystal vein produced 10 times more soul stones a year, 100,000. Then now, he should have more than 1 trillion divine crystals. Hearing these two numbers, Qin Feiyang himself was also shocked. He didn't expect that in just a few years, he would have such a huge amount of wealth. But he knew. This was all thanks to the castle. Without the castle's time formation, 100 billion soul stones. 1 trillion divine crystals. It was all a dream. Like this. Collect all the soul stones and divine crystals. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and looked at Fire Lotus. What? Give it to Jiang Dafei and Fan Yunzhang. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang smiled, since they are working for me, I naturally can't treat them unfairly. Fire Lotus frowned, but there's no need to give it all to them. It's okay. Anyway, these crystal veins and soul veins are produced every day. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. All right then. But I still have to keep some soul stones. After all, now, not only you and the white-eyed wolf, but also the big black wolf, the 3 Black Panther brothers, and Li Changhe. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang smiled, do as you see fit. Okay. I'll go collect them now. With that, Fire Lotus turned and left. Qin Feiyang also turned and walked to the altar, taking out the 3 first-grade divine fires. After the netherworld demonic flame devoured them, it directly advanced to a 2nd-grade divine fire. Qin Feiyang tried to use the original 2nd-grade divine furnace to refine a healing pill. As expected, he refined 9 pill veins. Immediately after, Qin Feiyang was looking forward to it. Divine pill. He would be able to refine this kind of legendary elixir immediately, how could he not be excited? He took out the 3 2nd-grade divine fires. When the netherworld demonic flame advanced to a 3rd grade, he would use the fire ox cauldron that Jiang Dafei gave him to refine a healing pill. The level of the pill cauldron and pill fire had both advanced by a level. The divine pill definitely could not run away. But when the healing pill came out, he was stunned. This healing pill actually did not have a dragon-shaped pill chi, but 10 pill veins. 10 pill veins. What was going on? Didn't pills have at most 9 pill veins? Wait. He remembered that Zhao Tailai and the others said that when he opened the door of rebirth and fell into a state of near death, the divine-level guardian fire python came to save him with a divine pill. As for that medicinal pill, there were 10 dragon-shaped core chi. Since there were 10 dragon-shaped pill chi, then the highest number of pill veins should also be 10. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang could not help but smile bitterly. In the past, the alchemists he met, except for his ancestor, none of them could refine divine-level elixirs. And his ancestor did not tell him. So much so that he mistakenly thought that the highest number of pill veins was 9. In that case, if he wanted to refine divine-level elixirs, he had to raise the netherworld demonic flame to a 4th grade. The pill cauldron also had to be a 4th grade. 4th grade, gradually. A trace of a smile appeared on his face. 4th grade divine cauldron and divine fire were nothing to his current financial resources. Moreover, what the netherworld demonic flame needed to devour now was not 4th grade divine fire, but only 3 3rd grade divine fires.